Chapter 12-15. And the situation of the Silver Moon clan. One must know that the Queen of Silver Moon was pregnant with his child. Such dense spiritual energy, this spiritual energy seems to be. Shirhan's surprised voice came from the side. Qin Feng glanced at the silver-haired beauty. After her reminder, he also noticed it. At this moment, the spiritual energy in the barren mountain was not much inferior to that in the immemorial land. Under the influence of the spiritual energy, the grass in the surrounding barren mountain seemed to emit a strange spiritual energy. It even condensed into a half-spiritual energy dew. Spiritual energy liquefied. How shocking was this? This change was very different from 2 years ago. Qin Feng could be sure that 2 years ago, the spiritual energy in the Linghai continent was not even 1/10 of the spiritual energy here. Roar. Suddenly, a primitive and ferocious beast roar came, and the roar of the waterfall seemed to be suppressed by this beast's roar. The two's expressions changed at the same time. An extremely powerful demonic aura grew from the bottom of the water, and in the next moment, a huge bloody mouth appeared above the two's heads. Impudent! Shirhan's expression was cold as she looked up. The water above her head suddenly froze in the air, and dark green scales appeared from the floating water. Red dragon whiskers, mouth full of sharp teeth that could tear any prey, and eyes fierce. This was a fish. A fish with dragon bloodline, Hungong fish. And its strength was not weak, 4th stage Nirvana realm. Of course, this 4th stage was only a small fish to the current Qin Feng and Shirhan. But compared to ordinary cultivators, this kind of ferocious beast was not weak. Let it go. His expression was indifferent. Shirhan nodded and waved her big sleeve. An invisible force swept the huge Hungong fish 100 zhang away, and it fell into the waterfall in the distance. After suffering a big loss, this Hungong fish that had just gained intelligence immediately left the two's sight. Qin Feng's face was expressionless, but his heart was tense. The rise of spiritual energy led to the mutation of the world. Many ordinary beasts had a higher chance of mutation, and there was no lack of wild beasts awakening the bloodline of ancient ferocious beasts. If such a terrifying monster appeared in the hinterland of Xingqian School, the situation in other places would be even worse. Young master, where are we going now? Are we rushing back to Xingqian School? Shirhan looked at Qin Feng. Should they go back to Xingqian School first, or go to the Silver Moon clan? This thought only circled in Qin Feng's mind, but he did not hesitate to choose the latter. Let's go to Moonless Forest. Compared to the Star Sect, Qin Feng was more worried about the Queen of Silver Moon in the Moonless Forest. The power of the void flowed around Qin Feng. Void teleportation. Tens of thousands of miles in an instant. However, the demonic qi that rose from the ground was extremely frightening. The first to benefit from the upheaval of the world and the recovery of spirit qi were the demons. Bloodline, Nirvana's Nirvana demon Demona. Moment later, the bone burial ground appeared in front of them. On the huge plain of bones, the death qi and yin qi formed a terrifying tornado that connected the heavens and the earth. There was a faint fluctuation of divine power in the center. In this burial ground, there must be an extremely powerful character hidden within. Arriving at this boneyard, they were already very close to the Moonless Forest. Qin Feng did not continue to use void teleportation and prepared to fly over. However, when they were halfway there, their path was blocked. A dense evil qi appeared from the earth. Looking ahead, the yellow sand within thousands of miles was like boiling waste water in a boiler. The gray desert pulsed endlessly, and a terrifying evil death qi was emitted from the earth. Then, in front of the two of them, large groups of white bones walked out of the gray desert in an orderly manner. Roar! A deep dragon roar sounded, and a huge bone dragon appeared in the middle of the group. On top of the bone dragon, there was a majestic bone carriage with a bone throne embedded in it. On the throne, there was a white bone emitting a pitch-black flame. The bird's nest fire and the bird's nest looked at the two of them. Rumble. A wave of evil death chi that surpassed the 13th level fluctuated. This was the bone burial ground, a 14th level white bone monarch. Woo woo. In the void, ghostly wails and wolf howls could be heard. Dozens of pitch-black skulls appeared in front of the carriage. Crown Prince. Amidst the sinister laughter, dozens of white bone overlords who were afraid of the evil death chi bowed in unison. On the white bone throne, the white bone overlord who was called the Crown Prince raised a snow-white bone arm and waved it slightly. The dozens of white bone overlords who were afraid of the evil death chi nodded in unison. They stared at the two figures in the void, who were full of vitality. To the white bone demon, such an expert who was filled with a strong aura of life and flesh was a great tonic. It was also those two human powerhouses who were courting death. Ever since the bone burial ground was unified by the white bone emperor, anyone who dared to fly over the bone burial ground would die. These two fools might be unfamiliar powerhouses from other regions. Otherwise, they would not have come to court death. A bunch of ants, how dare you put on a show in front of me? Qin Feng glanced at the millions of white bone demons in front of him, especially the 14th level white bone monarch who was called the Crown Prince. In the 9 Nether tribe, such trash did not even have the right to speak in front of him. How dare they come to court death? He stood with his hands behind his back, sneered, and waved his sleeve. In Sher Han's eyes, the next moment, the white bone demons who were pouncing over ferociously froze. It was as if the next second, the white bones turned into white ashes that filled the sky. Including the extravagant white bone Crown Prince. The white bone demons that filled the sky turned into powder in his sleeve. My lord is really too powerful. Sher Han was expressionless, but she was shaking her head in her heart. The two of them were about to continue moving forward. Rumble. Suddenly, thunder rumbled in the distant sky. Roar. From afar, an extremely angry roar came from the depths of the bone burial ground. A shocking evil chi soared up from the ground. It seems to be the white bone monarch, who infuriated this secondary king and actually made him lose his composure like this. At this moment, many powerhouses within a radius of 100,000 miles were secretly surprised. The White Bone Monarch was a famous peerless powerhouse in the ancient times. Some time ago, when he woke up, he swept across the entire bone burial ground. He was notorious for his ferocity. Even the Xingqian school turned a blind eye to his actions. Even in the Spirit Sea continent, when kings appeared, a king was definitely a peerless powerhouse who dominated a region. Another one comes to court death. Sher Han shook her head, secretly feeling sorry for the White Bone Monarch. Why did he come to court death in front of the 9 Nether King? In the void, the dense evil chi of death formed dense black clouds. From the black clouds, an unusually tall and sturdy white bone skeleton in a pitch-black emperor robe walked out. The 7-colored soul fire in its eye sockets was as cold as a knife. You killed my son, and you still want to leave today? Chapter 12:16. White Bone Great Emperor, your son killed living beings and absorbed their flesh and blood without restraint. Such a cruel and vicious person will have retribution sooner or later. Instead of dying miserably at the hands of others, it's his luck that he died in my hands. Speaking of which, you should thank me. When he died, his face was peaceful. Qin Feng glanced at the White Bone Great Emperor indifferently. On the side, Sher Han turned her face away. He had killed his son and still wanted to show off in front of his father. Qin Feng had refreshed her worldview. The pitch-black netherworld flame on the White Bone Great Emperor's body was violently mobilized. The soul fire in his eye sockets was about to spit out light. Even the powerhouses in the entire burial ground could sense his expanding anger. Little beast, I will definitely break your bones one by one. I will definitely not let you die so easily. A hoarse voice seemed to be squeezed out from his throat. The White Bone Great Emperor's eyes were sinister. Heaven rank law, white bone piercing. Invisible laws swept toward Qin Feng. He was dead meat. Seeing this scene, the burial ground and the surrounding powerhouses shook their heads. Although the white bone great emperor wasn't the strongest among the many powerhouses that had appeared during this period of time, he was still a first-rate powerhouse. A quasi-king level powerhouse. With just you. Qin Feng shook his head slightly and stretched out a hand. A layer of invisible light circulated on his palm, and it instantly became abnormally huge. It covered the sky and the sun. In the void, he grabbed the white bone great emperor and threw him heavily to the ground. Boom! The ground was penetrated by this figure. Boom! In the sky, a huge palm spread out as if it had surpassed 100,000 miles of the void. Qin Feng stretched out his palm, and a faint sneer flashed across his face. Watch how I crush you to death with one hand. Boom! On the ground, the white bone great emperor's robe shattered and rushed out from the earth veins. He raised his head and looked at the huge palm above his head. The soul fire in his eye sockets pulsed violently, and a trace of shock flickered. He had encountered a peerless powerhouse. His courage was shattered. His figure flashed, turned into a white line, and fled rapidly. He tore through the void and fled out of the burial ground with all his might. Can you run away? Qin Feng's lips curled into a devilish smile. A gigantic palm that spanned 100,000 kilometers suddenly descended from the sky. Around the boneyard, many cultivators seemed to see the sky above the boneyard collapse, and the sky and the earth overlap. The space within 100,000 miles was completely shattered by the tremendous pressure. The white bone great emperor was like a little bug scurrying around in the void. Bang! It was as if heaven and earth were in harmony. Everything turned into fine powder. In the void, Qin Feng retracted his palm and glanced at the place where the palm pressed down. It was as though he had casually squashed a fly. His hand then retracted back into his sleeve. He glanced at Shirhan, who had a slightly stunned expression on her face. Let's go! Yes. Shirhan subconsciously withdrew her gaze and nodded. The two of them were like two streaks of light as they silently disappeared from where they stood. A moment after the two of them left, streams of light flew from the horizon, each with a powerful aura. Everyone's eyes swept across the sea of clouds. He's gone. He seems to have left. He's really gone. Everyone's gazes moved and landed on the ground under the sea of clouds. However, with just a glance, everyone's pupils constricted. It was too terrifying. As far as everyone's eyes could see, the 100,000 li burial ground had already collapsed. From today onwards, it was no longer appropriate to call this place the boneyard. It should be called the Boneyard Basin. A steep slope of nearly 1,000 feet sloped to the center of the basin. Not even dregs of the famous White Bone Great Emperor were left. The White Bone Demon clan was basically wiped out. Many experts were shocked. They did not know what kind of terrifying existence the White Bone Great Emperor had encountered. Serves him right. However, there were also experts who scolded out loud, gloating over his misfortune. Another expert chimed in. He deserved to die. Ever since the White Bone Great Emperor appeared, no one has been allowed to pass through this boneyard. Anyone who passes through this land will have their flesh and blood sucked dry, and their bones will be hung up as a warning. Many people have suffered greatly. Another expert on the side had a face full of hatred. That's right. This White Bone clan is ferocious and sinister. These days, they are still expanding the boneyard. The entire town over there has been turned into a land of death by the White Bone clan. Poor millions of innocent creatures have died tragically. Now they have kicked an iron plate. I just don't know which expert has such terrifying methods. It's fascinating. What happened in the boneyard quickly spread out as many experts flew in all directions. Many forces were sending people to inquire about the identity of this unknown expert. Such an expert had to be warned to some disciples who liked to cause trouble in the forces not to provoke him easily, lest they follow in the footsteps of the White Bone Demon clan. However, the main character in everyone's discussion had already arrived at the surroundings of the moonless forest. The forest in front of them, which was adjacent to the boneyard, looked even deeper and more mysterious after the change of heaven and earth. Ancient trees towered into the sky. Many of them had absorbed spiritual energy and were transforming into spiritual trees. He closed his eyes slightly and scanned the area with his divine sense. A moment later, Qin Feng opened his eyes. A trace of gloominess flashed in his eyes. There was no aura of Queen Silvermoon in the moonless forest. After pondering for a moment, the two continued to walk towards the moonless forest. However, after crossing the forest, Qin Feng stopped in his tracks. Shirhan's expression changed as she quietly stood behind Qin Feng. "Who dares to trespass into the moonless forest?" A cold voice came from the depths of the empty and quiet forest, as if it was right next to their ears. In the distance, streaks of silver light swooped down from the ancient trees. A group of people was moving at an extremely fast speed. They were like silver moon elves in the forest. A moment later, a group of graceful young girls appeared on the treetops. In an instant, countless silver arrows were aimed at the two people in the forest. A mournful chill descended. In midair, a silver light flashed. A thick aura of a saint appeared in front of the girls in the next moment. The silver light landed on the ground, outlining a slender, long and cold figure. She had the signature silver hair of the Silver Moon clan and a beautiful face. Her gaze swept across the many Silver Moon guards around her. This Silver Moon saint's gaze fell on the two figures who had barged into the moonless forest and was slightly startled. "It's you," this Silver Moon saint was slightly stunned, and then a smile appeared on her face. "Long time no see, Commander Yin-Ling." Qin Feng smiled. He knew the sage of the Silver Moon clan. This Commander Yin-Ling could be said to be Princess Yu Ji's confidant. When he entered the moonless forest at the beginning of the year, it was this commander who mistook him as the prince consort of the Silver Moon clan. Of course, it was also because of this that he had an affair with the Silver Moon Queen by accident. Looking at this tall and beautiful woman with a cold face, Qin Feng faintly smiled. "Long time no see, Commander Yin-Ling, you actually jumped from level 4 Nirvana realm to level 8 Saint. Congratulations! Young Master Qin, you're too polite. No matter what, I'm not as handsome as you." Yin-Ling looked at the black-robed young man in front of her. In the past 3 years, her strength had improved by leaps and bounds. She was still somewhat confident. At this moment, she was not weaker than Qin Feng 3 or 4 years ago. However, after carefully looking at this black-robed young man in front of her, Yin-Ling was secretly shocked. She could not see clearly. The aura of this black-robed young man in front of her was like a bottomless abyss. Glancing at the silver-haired girl beside Qin Feng, Yin-Ling was even more shocked. Although she could not see through this girl's aura, the aura of this girl was almost not inferior to the elders of the moonless forest. Chapter 12-17. After some small talk, Yin-Ling's gaze landed on the black-robed young man. "Sir, are you going to visit the princess at Moon Reflection Lake?" Qin Feng's heart skipped a beat. How could he not say that he was not here to visit the princess, but to visit the princess's mother? He nodded immediately. If that's the case, Yin-Ling looked hesitant. She glanced at Qin Feng, wanting to say something, but stopped herself. Seeing her expression, Qin Feng recalled that the queen's aura was no longer at Moon Reflection Lake, and his expression darkened. "Commander Yin-Ling, did something happen to the Silver Moon clan?" He raised his eyes and looked at Qin Feng. This son-in-law was not an outsider. She nodded, then shook her head. Qin Feng's frown deepened. "Sir Qin, you must have just come out of seclusion. The world has changed in the past 2 years, and there are many things you don't know. Too many young experts and ancient giants have appeared in the past 2 years. The current ruler of the Silver Moon clan is no longer the original Silver Moon Queen. Hearing this, a trace of uneasiness flashed through Qin Feng's heart. However, his expression did not change and he did not interrupt Commander Silver Bell. There are also a few ancient geniuses of the Silver Moon clan who have broken out of their seals. Among them are a few ancient Silver Moon kings, especially the Divine Yin Empress. The Divine Yin Empress? Qin Feng's expression changed slightly. Generally speaking, if a female expert had the word Empress in their names, they were all extraordinary and peerless figures. The Divine Yin Empress, in the legends of the gods and demons, was the empress of an ancient son of heaven, Yen. The ancient son of heaven, Yen, was a son of heaven born in an era in the middle of the ancient era. This son of heaven had once established a huge divine dynasty. It was called the Yen King Divine Dynasty. Later, it was destroyed with the change of era. However, it left behind a legacy sect, the Flame Spirit Palace. However, it was destroyed in history, and its territory was divided among many sections. The Divine Yin Empress was the empress of that ancient son of heaven. She was probably not a nobody. In other words, that ancient queen took over the Silver Moon clan and became the Silver Moon Queen. I wonder where the original Silver Moon Queen, Princess Yuji, is now? Qin Feng looked at Yinling. Yinling said, Princess Yuji, along with the other 4 ancient Silver Moon royal family members, are now known as the 5 great princesses of the Silver Moon clan. Princess Yuji's strength is the weakest, and she is the 5th princess. Above her are Princess Hanyue, Princess Lingyue, Princess Xuangyue, Princess Xinyue, and Princess Yuji. As for the queen, Yinling's eyes flickered slightly. She suddenly turned around and glanced at the many warriors behind her. You guys go back first and report to the Empress that an important guest has come to visit. This commander will be there soon. Yes. The Silver Moon warriors looked at each other and quickly disappeared into the surrounding forest. Seeing that everyone had disappeared, she glanced at Qin Feng and Zhang Xian. Seeing that Yinling had suddenly sent everyone away, Qin Feng's eyes darkened slightly. The bad feeling in his heart grew even stronger. He could not help but ask Yinling in a deep voice, "What happened to the queen?" "Young Master Qin, you saved our Silver Moon clan and are close friends with the princess. I won't hide it from you. The previous queen was found pregnant by the Divine Yin Empress. She did not know who the father was, and the queen did not say. The Empress and the elders believe that the queen has violated the clan rules and tarnished the reputation of the Silver Moon clan. She should be executed." Yinling's face had a trace of regret. She did not notice the coldness that flashed in the eyes of the black-robed young man not far away. At this moment, Qin Feng was furious. It would be fine if the Queen of Silver Moon and the son in her womb were fine. However, if something happened to them, he would definitely bury the entire Silver Moon clan with them. At this moment, Yinling spoke again. "As for the child in her womb, the Empress wants to abort it. However, we don't know whose child the Queen is carrying. That child is extremely stubborn and born with divine strength. The Empress has thought of many ways to abort the child in her womb, but she has not been able to abort the child. Now, she is preparing to borrow the East Pole Sun God clan's treasure, the East Pole Sun Furnace, to burn the child to death." "Burn it to death. Very good." Qin Feng's expression did not change. However, his heart was ferocious, and his killing intent was like a raging tide. At this moment, even though he could not wait to rush into the moon reflection lake and kill that despicable Empress, he forcefully suppressed this impulse. He knew that the Queen of Moon cherished her face and did not want him to be the father of the child with this identity. If he rushed in like this, even if he saved the Queen of Silver Moon, she would not be able to live. As his mind spun, Qin Feng forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart. No matter what, that bullsh *T Empress of Moon must die. Yinling did not know that so many thoughts were running through the black-robed youth's mind. She looked at the youth in front of her with some hope. Young Master Qin, you came at the right time. Yesterday, the prince of the East Pole Sun God clan arrived with the treasure and is negotiating with the Empress. I heard that one of the 5 princesses will be chosen to marry the prince of the East Pole Sun God clan. That princess is most likely Princess Yu. Letting Yu marry? Is this an opportunity? Qin Feng's heart stirred. To be honest, ever since he had an accidental relationship with the Queen of Silvermoon, Qin Feng's ambiguous feelings towards Yu had faded by a lot. He really did not feel anything about who Yu would marry. However, there was an opportunity in front of him. The Empress of Moon had captured the Queen of Silvermoon. He could not cause a ruckus and kill that so-called Empress of Moon, because he had to take care of the Queen of Silvermoon's reputation. However, there was an excuse in front of him that he could use to vent his anger. Most of the elders of the Silvermoon clan knew about his relationship with Yu. He could use this opportunity to kill that Empress of Moon and the group of elders who wanted to refine his child. Then, he could take the Queen of Silvermoon out. This way, not only would his relationship with the Queen of Silvermoon not be exposed, he could also push the Queen of Silvermoon back to the throne. With an idea in his mind, Qin Feng's eyes flashed with coldness in his expressionless eyes. Yin took in his expression and was secretly worried. She thought that the black-robed youth in front of her was secretly angry about Yu's marriage. As the 3 of them talked, they soon arrived at the blessed land of the Silvermoon clan, Moon Reflection Lake. When Qin Feng, Yin and Shirhan arrived, they saw a group of Silver Moon clan's warriors standing in a circle in front of the Moon Palace where the Queen of Heaven resided. It looked abnormally lively, but many people looked angry. Many of the upper echelons of the Silvermoon clan walked out of the palace. Each of them looked cold, arrogant, and lofty, as if they were about to announce some result. The leader was a powerful silver-haired Silvermoon clansman. Beside him was a handsome young man with long, crimson-red hair and a crown on his head. He seemed to be full of vigor as he looked at the beautiful silver-haired girl beside him with a burning gaze. The girl's beautiful face was expressionless, but the fingers of the hand that was holding her sword had turned white. She was none other than the former princess of the Silvermoon clan, Yu. She was also the current princess of Silvermoon. Chapter 12-18. The 3 of them surrounded her, and Qin Feng's gaze landed on the handsome red-haired man beside Yu. The aura that the other party exuded was pure yang and had a perfect aura. He was like the sun god in the sky, handsome and full of divine might. Is that the prince of the Far East Divine Clan? Qin Feng looked at the prince coldly. The Far East Divine Clan was a branch of the Sun God clan. Since the ancient era, there were many sun gods, some were strong, some were weak, but the strongest was of course the ancient light sovereign Sui sovereign. Among the many sun gods, many of them had descendants. Then, they formed some sun god meridians and passed down their legacies. For example, the Sui sovereign left behind the Sui Hua celestial race, but the Sui Hua celestial race had declined since the ancient era. Among the sun god race, there was no one that was more active than a branch of the demon race, the Golden Crow race. The Golden Crow's inheritance came from a demon emperor of the primordial era who used the sun to prove his Tao. This race was exceptionally famous. The other was the extreme Crimson God race. The Far East divine race had long since vanished without a trace. In the eyes of the world, they had already declined. However, it seemed like that might not be the case. It was very likely that it was hiding in some heavenly abode, and had been carefully developing all this time. This was inevitable. Many divine veins of the same type could devour each other. The strong could devour the weak and become stronger. The strong bloodline of the sun god could swallow the weak bloodline and perfect the sun Upanishad in his body. His cultivating speed would be faster, and he might even have a chance to surpass the sun god. On the side, hearing Qin Feng's voice transmission, Yin quietly replied, That's right, young master. That's a prince of the Far East divine race. His name is Qi Wuxian, and he could be said to be one of the most outstanding princes of the Far East divine race. Not long ago, he awakened his sun god force and advanced to the quasi-deity realm in one fell swoop. His potential is terrifying. She glanced at the black-robed young man and said, "Actually, in the ancient times, the Taiyin bloodline and the Taiyang bloodline often married each other. The Taiyin bloodline and the Taiyang bloodline both have great benefits. Furthermore, the better the aptitude of both parties, the greater the benefits we will receive. Seriously speaking, Princess Yuji's talent isn't inferior to those experts of the ancient Silvermoon royal family." Unfortunately, at this moment, a cold and arrogant silver-haired old woman walked out from the Moon Palace. He looked at the crowd. "Fine. Since everyone is gathered here, then this elder will represent the Council of Elders to announce the Moon Palace's decision. As you all know, our clan has already decided to form a marriage alliance with the Far East Divine Clan. However, the candidate for the marriage alliance with the Far East Prince has yet to be decided. Today, this elder will announce the decision of the Moon Palace's Heavenly Empress and all the elders." The old woman paused for a moment, looked around at everyone, and smiled. "The candidate for this marriage alliance is the fifth princess, the Inoue princess. Everyone knows that the Inoue princess is the #1 beauty of the Inoue clan. A beauty with a hero. The Qi Wuxian prince is also a hero of his time." As soon as he said this, many of the elders in front of the Moon Palace smiled. The handsome and valiant Eastern prince also revealed an extremely enchanting smile. The old woman continued, 3 days from now, by the Moon Reflection Lake, Prince Qi Wuxian and our clan's fifth princess, Princess Inu Yuji." Hold on. Before he could finish his sentence, a lazy voice came from below. Everyone was astonished. Who dared to speak at this time? Wasn't this a direct slap to the faces of the Silvermoon clan's upper echelons? The crowd quickly opened up a path, revealing 2 figures. Looking at the 2 unfamiliar figures, many people were puzzled. They didn't seem to be from the Silvermoon clan. "It's him?" On the steps of the Moon Palace, Yuji's face revealed a hint of joy. Seeing this, Qi Wuxian's face darkened. He stared at the black-robed young man in the crowd, and killing intent flashed in his eyes. From the first time he saw this Princess Inu, he had already regarded her as his exclusive property. He couldn't tolerate anyone else touching her. "Who are you? How dare you speak nonsense here?" On the steps, the old woman stared at the black-robed young man with an extremely gloomy expression. She looked around and shouted, "Guards, are you all dead? How dare you let a lowly outsider enter the Moon Reflection Lake?" Hearing this, the faces of many Silvermoon clan elders turned cold. Their eyes fell on the black-robed young man who had suddenly intruded, and their faces were filled with killing intent. Elder Yin Feng. On the side, an elder who knew Qin Feng secretly transmitted his voice to the old woman. "Elder Yin Feng, this person is a true disciple of Xingqian school and is from the same sect as Princess Inu. He even helped when the Moon Demon attacked our moonless forest. It's rumored that this person has an unusual relationship with Princess Inu. His sudden appearance here today is probably Princess Inu's doing." The silver-haired old woman glanced at the elder who transmitted his voice and smiled coldly. "Help her? Unfortunately, Xingqian school couldn't even take care of itself now, so it couldn't care less about the Inoue clan. Boy, your name is Qin Feng, right? Since you once helped my Silvermoon clan, I won't bicker with you today. But this is the Silvermoon clan, not your Xingqian school. You don't have the qualifications to meddle in the internal affairs of my Silvermoon clan. However, after seeing your Xingqian school's headmaster, I must ask, are the disciples of your Xingqian school so stupid and arrogant? They really overestimate themselves. This young man is far too arrogant. He saved many of us a few days ago, and we all had such a high opinion of him. I never thought he would be so unbearable. Does he really think that just because he has some talent and saved some of our people that he can meddle in the internal affairs of our Silvermoon clan? He's too reckless. That's right. The world has changed and powerhouses have appeared in large numbers. Even a has-been genius from several years ago dares to come to our Silvermoon clan and pretend to be a hero. Many Silvermoon clansmen secretly shook their heads. In the past, this Qin Feng had been extremely stunning. Before he was 20 years old, he had reached the 11th step World King realm and had even defeated masters from all over the world. At that time, many Silvermoon clansmen had secretly fallen in love with him. However, in his eyes, there was only Princess Moonflower. This caused many young girls to feel sad. But now, many of them were secretly rejoicing. They rejoiced that they hadn't been together with this Qin Feng at that time. What was an 11th step World King Saint that wasn't even 20 years old? In these past 2 years, powerhouses had emerged from all over the world. Although there weren't many 11th step World King Saints that were 20 years old, they were still quite rare. Many geniuses that had reincarnated from the constellations would hear about someone breaking through to the 11th step or even the 12th step every so often. From time to time, there would even be news of ancient proud children of heaven. These ancient proud children of heaven were close to the 14th step supreme realm when they were born. With just a little bit of cultivation, they could break through to the 14th step or even the 15th step. There were also many young second kings. These were the true leaders of the younger generation. They were the backbone of the future. As for Qin Feng, although he was amazing at the time, in the eyes of these young girls, he really wasn't much at all. Chapter 12-19. This young Master Qin is too impulsive. Yin sighed inwardly. Qin Feng's words implied that he was going to fight against the entire Moon Palace's upper echelons alone. How unwise was that? No matter how strong he was, how could he fight against an entire clan alone? Wasn't that like a mantis trying to stop a chariot? Yin was somewhat disappointed in her heart. This young Master Qin Feng might have had a smooth sailing for too long and was no longer accustomed to the ever-changing world. Qin Feng more or less knew what the girls were thinking, but he didn't care. He only raised his head and looked directly at the group of Silvermoon clan elders on the steps of the Moon Palace. I don't care about the marriage between the East Pole clan and anyone else, but if Princess Yuji wants to marry, you have to ask for my permission first. On the steps, Yuji's face flashed with a trace of emotion. At this juncture, only this fellow disciple of hers would stand out without hesitation. She wondered what kind of expression she would have if she knew that this guy was not here for her, but for the Silvermoon Queen. Seeing that Qin Feng was unrepentant and was spouting nonsense, a Silvermoon clan expert who had long disliked Qin Feng's character spoke up. What an eye-opener! So this is the peerless genius of Xingqian School. Qin Feng looked over. At this time, 4 peerless beauties walked out of the Moon Palace. They were all heavenly beauties with silver hair and bright eyes. Their figures were even more graceful than ordinary women. The other 4 princesses of the Silvermoon clan appeared. The eldest princess, Princess Hanyue, the second princess, Princess Lingyue, the third princess, Princess Xuanyue, and the 4th princess, Princess Xunyue. These 4 were ancient Silvermoon royalty. They were all princesses of the Silvermoon clan, peerless geniuses of a certain period in the ancient era. They had sealed themselves and were now reborn in this world. From the way the 4 princesses were dressed, one could still see some traces of their era. Princess Hanyue's ancient aura was extremely rich. Obviously, she was born in an era close to the ancient era. The second princess, Princess Lingyue, and the third princess, Princess Xuanyue, had similar auras and styles. They should be geniuses of a certain era in the middle of the ancient era. The 4th princess, Princess Xinyu, should only be a self-proclaimed peerless genius who was close to the golden age a few eras ago. The 4 ancient Silver Moon princesses were extremely powerful, and the traces of divine power on their bodies far surpassed Yuji's. Among them, the 4th princess, Princess Shenyu, was the strongest. She was a 15th order heavenly-seated princess. The other 4 were not weak either. They were all level 14 peerless prodigies who had comprehended the supreme moon law. The one who spoke was Princess Xuangyue. Her face was as cold as frost. Among the 5 princesses, she looked the coldest. Young Master Qin Feng, you have saved many of our Silver Moon clansmen. This is a fact, but you shouldn't overestimate yourself. Even if you are a star venerable, you cannot change the Moon Palace's decision. Considering that you were once the benefactor of the Silver Moon clan, we can overlook today's matter. However, if you continue to pester us, even if you have some ability, I'm afraid you won't be able to walk out of the moonless forest. Headmaster, Star Venerable? Qin Feng smiled faintly. Although the Star Venerable is powerful and has become the headmaster of the Xingqian school, in my opinion, the Star Venerable may not be a match for me. Well, since you insist, I can only kill the so-called Supreme Moon Master first, and then settle this matter. If I don't use thunderous means, how can I show off my supreme power? Qin Feng thought of Fahai's catchphrase and recited it softly. Under the gazes of the powerhouses of the Silver Moon clan, Qin Feng disappeared on the spot. The next moment, he appeared in front of the stairs. The powerhouses of the Silver Moon clan were stunned for a moment. Then, they sneered and wanted to mobilize the divine power in their bodies to attack. But in the next moment, everyone's expression changed. They were shocked to discover that they couldn't move at all. This included the few elders who were at the peak of level 14. Elder Yinfeng, who was in the lead, stared at Qin Feng in shock. This kind of divine power could be said to be unfathomable. He glanced at the 14th level elders led by Elder Silver Phoenix. Kacha, Kacha! The power of time flowed and life walked towards the dusk of nirvana. The elders of the Silver Moon clan watched in horror as their lifespan was being reduced by 100 times, 1,000 times, even 10,000 times. Inch by inch, they turned into ashes and disappeared from the world. Too weak. Qin Feng's gaze swept over the 4 princesses of the Silver Moon clan. The 4 princesses' faces were pale. Including the strongest level 15 princess Mystic Moon, the 4 of them looked at Qin Feng with distressed eyes. They were waiting for the black-robed youth's judgment. No one thought that this black-robed youth would be so terrifying. Just a glance was enough to kill several level 14 powerhouses at the same time. Was this still the legendary level 11 World King Sage? The rumors were simply too outrageous. This kind of strength, perhaps only those pseudo-kings or true kings could possess. Their only hope now was for the Lunar Empress to appear. In the entire Silver Moon clan, perhaps only the Lunar Empress could resist this black-robed youth. The 4 princesses' beautiful faces were bleak. In the eyes of the black-robed youth, their beautiful faces were like flowers that would wither in the next moment. On the side, although some of the Silver Moon clan powerhouses were furious and wanted to stop this from happening, no one could move, let alone speak. The black-robed youth was too strong. His strength was beyond their imagination. Senior apprentice brother, spare them. This matter has nothing to do with them. A slightly pleading voice sounded. Qin Feng's heart stirred as his gaze fell on Yuji on the steps. Yuji's beautiful eyes were filled with reluctance. Although the 4 Silver Moon princesses in front of her had made things difficult for her, they were still rare geniuses of the Silver Moon clan. Moreover, they were princesses. If they died like this, it would be a great loss to the Silver Moon clan's strength. Fine, since junior sister is pleading, I'll spare you? Qin Feng said indifferently. Hearing that, the 4 princesses heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts almost at the same time. By the time they reacted, their backs were already soaked in cold sweat. Her gaze towards Yuji carried a trace of gratitude, as well as a trace of guilt. Previously, The four of them had joined forces to ostracize this Princess Moon. If not for that, Princess Moon wouldn't have been arranged to marry Far Away and form a marriage alliance. Qin Feng's gaze swept across and finally landed on the prince of the extreme East clan, Qi Wuxian. Qi Wuxian looked terrified. Qin Feng's gaze was like the god of death, causing him to tremble. This caused him to feel humiliated, jealous, and resentful. Qin Feng's gaze was cold, as if he could see through the resentment and jealousy that Qi Wuxian was trying his best to hide in his heart. A cold smile flashed across his lips. He was about to kill Qi Wuxian. Suddenly, Qin Feng's brows twitched, and he turned to look into the depths of the vast glacial palace. Several extremely terrifying auras flashed from the depths of the vast glacial palace and appeared in front of it a moment later. Qin Feng's gaze landed on the two figures in the lead, a man and a woman. Their auras were as deep as the sea, and their strength far surpassed that of ordinary kings. Seeing these two figures appear, a hint of joy appeared in the corners of Qi Wuxian's eyes. Then, his gaze turned sinister and smug as he stared at the black-robed youth in front of him. Her Majesty the Empress of Heaven and His Majesty, the Duke of Crimson Flame, have arrived. Let's see how you'll die later. When he thought of a young expert who was more talented and stronger than him dying at the hands of two kings, he felt a twisted sense of joy in his heart. If he could, he would beg the two kings to let him torture this man before killing him. If he could ride the Inue princess, who was known as the #1 beauty of the Silver Moon clan, in front of him, that would be the best. Thinking of this, the smile on his face grew even wider. There was even a hint of excitement and a trembling malevolence. However, in the next moment, his smile froze on his face, and a trace of disbelief flickered in his eyes. A finger instantly enlarged to the extreme in his eyes, and in the next moment, he seemed to hear the sound of his soul shattering. Crack! Although it was faint, it was no less than a world-shaking sound in his ears. His eyes widened to the extreme, and a trace of confusion appeared in them. All of his previous smugness seemed to have turned into fragments that filled the sky. He stubbornly held on to the corner of his eyes, as if he didn't believe that he would die. However, a hand had already shattered his last hope. His entire body shook, and in the next moment, he sank into boundless darkness. Before he fell into the darkness, he faintly heard an angry roar. It seemed to be the voice of his imperial uncle, the Crimson Flame King. Chapter 12:20. You actually dared to kill him? The King of Crimson Flame had personally witnessed his nephew being killed by Qin Feng with a flick of his finger. A wave of rage and killing intent surged through the skies, and his entire body was covered in divine flames. This was an ancient king from the primordial era. He was also the sole surviving king of the ultimate Crimson clan. A thick divine aura swept out like a river. The surrounding space seemed to collapse under the might of this divine aura. The many experts of the Silver Moon clan around the Great Winter Palace were unable to resist this might. They couldn't help but fall to their knees, like a group of ants in a tornado. At the same time, on the other side, another wave of extremely cold divine aura locked onto Qin Feng and swept towards him. It's over. Quite a few experts of the Silver Moon clan secretly sighed for the black-robed youth. They couldn't deny that Qin Feng's thunderous display of killing Elder Silver Phoenix and the others was truly shocking. This level of power was completely comparable to that of the primordial era's geniuses. But in front of a king, there was only one outcome for an ancient king: death. Much less two kings: the Empress of Lunar Sky and the King of Crimson Flame. These two had been kings since the primordial era, and had even slain true gods. What a pity! He was too rash. Many people felt it was a pity. Such a genius with the potential to become a true god, but he was going to perish here. However, in front of the Great Winter Palace, Qin Feng just smiled calmly. His gaze fell upon the Empress of Lunar Sky and the King of Crimson Flame. A cold smile appeared in his eyes. His divine will connected with his sovereign space, and a majestic power capable of freezing spacetime suddenly appeared. What is this power? In the instant that this power appeared, the faces of the Empress of Lunar Sky and the King of Crimson Flame changed dramatically. Neither of them were country bumpkins. One was the Empress of the primordial era, while the other was a descendant of a god who had the legacy of a true god. Right now, in their senses, the black-robed youth at the bottom of the stairs was like a ball of divine light, a grand radiance that transcended the heavens and the earth. It was indescribably mighty, seeming to suppress spacetime itself. Under that faint radiance, spacetime itself seemed to turn sluggish and obscure. Even the slightest hint of his majesty seemed to be capable of destroying spacetime itself. Destroying kings like them. Sovereigns might. The two of them were shocked to the extreme, and a trace of disbelief surfaced in their eyes. As the faint light swept across, both of their faces turned pale. Their greater celestial godforce seemed to have been pierced by thousands of holes, and they could not even move an inch. Qin Feng's gaze first fell on the Scarlet Flame King. This ancient king's strength was extremely strong, and he had already comprehended a portion of the laws of fire. He was only slightly weaker than the ancient spirit emperor of the Divine Tree continent. Qin Feng raised a hand, and a power that could shatter space and time suddenly locked onto the Crimson Flame King and flew out. No! Red Flame King's eyes were filled with extreme fear. A trace of unwillingness appeared in the depths of his eyes. At the edge of life and death, his body shot out a beam of fire that could burn down all the world. Amidst the intense flames, a red light that resembled the sun of the Golden Crow flew out. It was a small stove. The scarlet furnace was like a gigantic sun that contained a terrifying might. That was the supreme treasure of the Extreme East clan, the Extreme East Yang furnace. This treasure was an item that the ancient Extreme East Sun God used to attain his Tao. Its power was not inferior to any connate spiritual treasure. The Lunar Empress wanted to borrow the power of this item to refine the Silver Moon Queen and her son. Boom! The mighty divine might bombarded the fiery red furnace. In the next moment, the Crimson Flame King's face turned ashen, and a tiny hole appeared on his head. The Lunar Empress' eyes flashed with bitterness. She looked over and could clearly see that the Extreme East Yang furnace in front of the Crimson Flame King had a tiny hole that was exactly the same as the one on his head. This attack directly pierced through the Extreme East Yang furnace's defense and wiped out the Crimson Flame King's soul. This power had far exceeded the limits of the King realm. I'm afraid this person is about to become a Dharch. The Lunar Empress' eyes were filled with disbelief. The fifth stage of the celestial realm was the heaven-defying celestial realm, also known as the Dharch realm. The fourth stage was the strong celestial realm, also known as the Dharch realm. Since ancient times, even during the primordial era of the gods, there were not many people who could claim the title of Dharch. Although the ancient emperors had advanced from king realm to god king, compared to the Dharch, they were still too far away. Boom! Like broken porcelain, the Crimson Flame King's body fell to the ground and shattered into countless pieces. A scarlet light appeared and floated in the void. The faint red light was like a scarlet sun. The demigod divine core of a king realm expert? At that moment, the hearts of many Silvermoon experts seemed to have skipped a beat, and then they looked at the item with burning eyes. The demigod divine core left behind by a king realm expert contained the expert's lifetime comprehension of the laws of the same element. If they refined this item, their chances of advancing to king realm would increase by a lot. Qin Feng waved his sleeves, and a wave of space-time energy wrapped around the item and swallowed it into the creator space, handing it over to the creator space to refine. This kind of divine core crystal could be said to be a great supplement for the creator space's evolution. After swallowing this object, Qin Feng could clearly feel that the sun star that was born in the chief god space had become even brighter and its power had increased by a lot. Qin Feng's eyes finally landed on the Empress of Lunar Heaven. This woman was indeed worthy of being the former Empress of Flame King Realm. Her appearance was beautiful, her figure was graceful, and her temperament was lovely. What was even rarer was that she had a domineering majesty that made people want to conquer her from the bottom of their hearts. Qin Feng's eyes were filled with killing intent. "Senior brother, can you spare the Empress of Heaven?" Suddenly, a voice sounded. Qin Feng turned around. "Yuji." The silver-haired girl looked at the Empress of Lunar Heaven with a complicated expression. There was anger, resentment, and also a trace of indescribable emotion. Indeed, the Empress of Lunar Heaven had forced her to a dead end. However, this person was the only king of the Silver Moon clan after all. When the Great Era arrived, only the clan protected by the King Realm would have the ability to protect themselves in the upcoming Great Era. Most of the Silver Moon experts looked at the silver-haired girl in surprise. However, most of them were looking at the black-robed youth in front of the stairs. There was a trace of hope in the Empress of Lunar Heaven's eyes. At this moment she was extremely regretful. If she had known that Yuji had such a terrifying man, she would definitely not have used the Queen of Silver Moon and her daughter to establish her might. Such an expert was probably already a quasi-emperor. To provoke a quasi-emperor, the Empress of Lunar Heaven's expression was miserable. Qin Feng seemed to see through the silver-haired girl's heart with a glance, and a cold smile flashed in his eyes. "What's this about thinking about the big picture? It's really the sorrow of the weak. The weak always have to think about the big picture." However, this was only the Silver Moon clan's big picture, not Qin Feng's big picture. "Anyone who dares to have any ideas about my woman will only have one ending. She has no other path." His voice was faint. Yuji was a little choked up. She felt an inexplicable panic, sweetness, and shyness in her heart. She thought that Qin Feng's words were directed at her. Looking at the black-robed youth in front of her, the silver-haired girl's beautiful face had a blush. She wanted to say something but stopped herself. The next moment, an invisible brilliance shot out from the black-robed youth's hand. It locked onto the Empress of Lunar Heaven and drowned her in her lifeless expression. Chapter 12:21. After killing Lunar Empress, Qin Feng obtained another half-divine spark. However, he did not refine it. Instead, he kept it. He scanned it with his divine will, and his eyes flickered as he activated the creator space. Rumble! A huge, indescribable power appeared above his head. With the help of the half-divinity left behind by the great Yin Queen, the chief god space followed the clues and locked onto a grotto heaven divine kingdom in the endless void that resembled a silver moon. The creator space sensed it, and a moment later, a familiar aura appeared in his mind. Qin Feng heaved a sigh of relief. That so-called lunar empress really did imprison Queen Silvermoon in her god's kingdom. Rumble! As if sensing that an external enemy had locked onto the god's kingdom, the lunar light emitted a huge amount of power. The power was so strong that even a true god would find it difficult to enter. This god's kingdom had been immersed in the god's kingdom for countless eras. The laws of heaven and earth had already reached a small success, and it could be said that it was transforming into the laws of heaven and earth. Once the laws of heaven and earth were born, it would be promoted to the creator space. However, in front of the creator space, the god's kingdom was still too weak. The huge space-time restriction absorbed the laws of heaven and earth and refined them. Almost the entire core of the god's kingdom was completely refined by the creator space. It was a subsidiary god's kingdom under the creator space. Rumble! The sky above the god's kingdom seemed to open, and a huge hole appeared in front of some of the living beings in the god's kingdom. In this huge god's kingdom, there was a huge mountain range like a creeping dragon. It was the core of the entire god's kingdom, and the spiritual energy here was so dense that it was almost solid. This was a huge King-grade spirit vein. Lunar Empress was indeed the Empress of the ancient heavenly Emperor Yen. She had a strong foundation. In the blessed land of the mountain range, this was the core of the god's kingdom. A few ancient sages who were guarding the shrine looked up at the hole in the sky and knelt on the ground. These ancient sages were all people from the ancient era. At this time, the god's kingdom had just recovered, and most of the living beings in the god's kingdom had withered after countless eras. In the god's kingdom, there were only a few ancient sages who came with Lunar Empress. These ancient sages were born with extremely long lives. They could feel that the god's kingdom had undergone a huge change just now. Even its core had been refined. It was obvious that the peerless expert who had refined the tiny divine nation had arrived. At the center of the divine hall, countless iron chains clanked as they locked up a peerless beauty. She had silver hair and green clothes. This was a young girl with a peerless charm. Her exquisite and beautiful face had a nobility, elegance, wisdom, and sharpness that was completely different from other peerless beauties. From time to time, she would gently caress her abdomen, and her beautiful face would occasionally reveal a hint of motherly radiance. He seemed to have sensed the appearance of that familiar aura. He's here, he's here. Don't worry, your father won't give up on us. She snorted softly and her eyes were cold. That damned bitch provoked your father. She won't have a good ending. He will seek justice for us and won't let us suffer any grievances. His mouth said. As soon as he finished speaking, a cool breeze blew in from outside the temple. Ding ding dang dang. An invisible force suddenly appeared and tore apart the iron chains on her hands and feet, causing them to break inch by inch. She stood up, turned around, and quietly walked out of the divine hall. Seeing that the queen had broken the chains and walked out, the expressions of the ancient sages outside changed. But then, they kowtowed and did not dare to raise their heads. Obviously, the queen had a close relationship with the peerless expert who had come to rescue them. Ignoring the ancient sages at her feet, the queen looked at the big hole above her head and snorted coldly. Outside the realm, Qin Feng could feel the grievance and dissatisfaction of the queen. He could not help but twitch the corners of his mouth, feeling a little embarrassed. At this moment, in the mountain range, a huge divine tree full of white osmanthus flowers as bright as the moon flashed and turned into a white stream of light that fell outside the divine hall. The white stream of light turned into a peerless beauty in white. This was the original soul of the Silvermoon clan's guardian ancient tree, the Tying ancient tree. This woman was also imprisoned in this huge divine nation. Her body was connected to a part of the spiritual veins of the divine nation and became one of the spiritual roots that suppressed this divine nation. The original soul seal. This time, it was fortunate that Qin Feng was able to save him. Qin Feng knew the relationship between this woman and the Silvermoon Queen. Rumble. On the shore of Moon Reflection Lake, a big hole formed by clouds seemed to have appeared in the sky above them. Gradually, two figures appeared in the big hole. Seeing these two voices, many of the Silvermoon clan's experts' expressions changed. The Queen of Silvermoon. Everyone looked at the black-robed young man in the center with complicated expressions. They looked at Yu with envy. Almost everyone thought that this young expert had saved the Queen of Silvermoon because he loved the house and its crow. In a few steps, the Queen of Silvermoon and Chang, she appeared in front of the Silvermoon clan's experts on the shore of Moon Reflection Lake. The Queen of Silvermoon was unexpectedly pregnant, and she did not know whose child it was. In fact, this had damaged her prestige in the Silvermoon clan. Seeing her appear, many of the Silvermoon clan's experts responded coldly. Qin Feng's expression was indifferent as he looked around at the Silvermoon clan's experts. Okay, the rebellion of the Silvermoon clan has been resolved. Your Highness, the rest is up to you. However, if anyone dares to stir up trouble, I will not sit by and do nothing. He looked around with a hint of threat in his eyes. After all, the source of this matter was Qin Feng. He would not allow anyone to threaten the queen. Hearing this, many of the experts felt a chill in their hearts, and many of them were drenched in cold sweat. With this peerless expert backing them, no one dared to look down on the Queen of Silvermoon and her daughter. However, this was a good thing. As today's matter spread, many forces on the Linghai continent would have to think twice before having any ideas about the Silvermoon clan. The Queen of Silvermoon glanced at the domineering black-robed young man expressionlessly. No one knew what she was thinking. Qin Feng's gaze fell on the Queen of Silvermoon, and he glanced at her lower abdomen. As if she had sensed it, the Queen of Silvermoon covered her lower abdomen with one hand and walked past Qin Feng with a cold expression as if she was facing a stranger. Qin Feng smiled bitterly in his heart. Qin Feng did not participate in the following matters. Instead, he focused on the Queen of Taiyin's kingdom. Even for a chief god, a gigantic divine nation was an incomparable amount of wealth. As for the King of Red Flames, although he was a king, Qin Feng found that his kingdom had long been sealed and had declined to a large kingdom. Although a large kingdom was precious, it could not be compared to a kingdom. However, a mosquito's leg was still meat. He would use the power of the core god space to refine it and make it a subsidiary kingdom of the core god space. He planned to reward it to one of his subordinates in the future. As for the Taiyin kingdom, its attribute was very suitable for experts who cultivated the Taiyin attribute. Qin Feng looked at it. The Taiyin kingdom was like a huge continent. There were many types of Taiyin spiritual roots on it, and the laws of heaven and earth had been perfected. If he cultivated it well, he might be able to advance further. This kingdom was a perfect gift for the Queen of Silvermoon. Together with the demigod divine spark left behind by the Queen of Taiyin, the Queen of Silvermoon already had the power of 2 generations of Taiyin star. With these 2 items, her foundation to become a true god would greatly increase. Chapter 12:22. Night fell. The moon reflection lake was still brightly lit after a day of hustle and bustle, but it had mostly quieted down. In short, the Queen of Silvermoon had regained control of the Silver Moon clan. The Queen of Silvermoon was extremely intelligent. Although she was imprisoned, her own henchmen and even her foundation were almost unharmed. Of course, the Queen now had a terrifying existence that surpassed the King realm by her side. For fear of breaking the vases, this made her taking back the power of the Queen even more neat and straightforward. Tai-In Peak, this was the place where the Queen of Silver Moon had lived for generations. Ever since the Queen of Silver Moon had been imprisoned by the Empress of Tai-In, this place had undergone many changes. Many of the ancient laurel spirit roots had been uprooted and sent into the Tai-In kingdom. In their place were many beautiful palaces. The Queen of Silver Moon had just regained power, so she did not have time to change this place back. Before the Jade Pavilion of the original Moon Palace, this place seemed to be the closest place to the Milky Way. Countless starlight shone, and the moonlight was like water. Standing on the Jade Pavilion, one seemed to be beside the bright moon. Standing on the Jade Pavilion, even a peerless expert like Qin Feng could not help but feel relaxed and happy. Of course, the main reason for this was the woman beside him. Qin Feng had never felt so relaxed before. Sometimes, he even felt that if this lasted forever, perhaps this life would not be in vain. Perhaps this was the feeling of home. For a moment, Qin Feng had such a thought. Qin Feng's eyes were a little blurred as he looked at the Milky Way in the distance, at the countless passing stars. It was undeniable that whether it was in his previous life or this life, he had always been very lonely. On the road ahead, he was always walking alone, unfettered by anything. It was also because of this that he never knew how to face a woman who was pregnant with his child. This feeling was very contradictory. However, looking at the Queen's gentle and motherly expression, He felt that everything he had done today might be worth it. After a while, the queen glanced at the leisurely black-robed youth beside her and suddenly said, "You came here in the middle of the night. Surely you didn't come here just to look at the stars?" Qin Feng turned around and looked at the queen with a calm gaze as he said seriously, "I'm here to save you. Now that I'm safe, you can leave the moonless forest." The Queen of Silvermoon snorted. "You misunderstood. I'm not talking about the Empress of Moon." Qin Feng shook his head and looked straight at the Empress. "Don't you feel it?" "Feel what?" The Queen of Silvermoon's face was expressionless. Although she said that, she seemed to have sensed something strange. She couldn't help but soften her tone. Although she didn't want to have anything to do with this little man in front of her, she had to admit that this little man was the father of her child. "Can't you sense the change in your own destiny? Your luck has been deteriorating all these years." Qin Feng's expression was grave. "Providence?" The Queen of Silvermoon muttered to herself. Luck was extremely important to a cultivator. If Qin Feng hadn't reminded her, she wouldn't have felt it. But now that he mentioned it, she vaguely felt it. Ever since she was pregnant with this child, the Silvermoon tribe had been in trouble one after another. First, it was Princess Yuqian's rebellion and the moon demon's attack. Then, they encountered all kinds of things one after another. Although she resolved them every time, it seemed to be endless. This time, there was even the Empress of Moon, which almost killed her. She was an exceptionally intelligent woman. With just a thought, she had a guess. She gently held her lower abdomen and said, "Is it because of his bloodline?" Qin Feng nodded slightly and said softly, "I am the first-generation primordial dragon ancestor. As I grow stronger, this primordial bloodline will also grow stronger. Although the dragon child in your body is only the second-generation primordial dragon ancestor, his bloodline will also grow stronger as my bloodline grows stronger. Furthermore, as I become a god, his bloodline will further transform. You mean to say that the process of his pregnancy will be affected by your strength, which will accelerate the process of stealing his mother's strength and even his luck. The accelerated consumption of luck would not only slow down the speed of cultivation, but also lead to all kinds of dangers." The Queen of Silvermoon looked unusually calm. Even after hearing this nightmarish news, she didn't change at all. Qin Feng stared at the Queen. Perhaps if it weren't for Princess Yuqian and the Flower Empress, he wouldn't have had the chance to continue interacting with this queen. But Qin Feng was still very curious. "You don't seem to be worried?" The Queen of Silvermoon turned around and looked at the black-robed youth with a cold smile. "What do I have to worry about? You're the one who should be worried. If you can't solve this problem, 2 lives will be lost. You should do as you see fit." Qin Feng had to admit that he was choked by the Queen. He smiled bitterly. "Don't worry. Since I've discovered this, I naturally have a way to solve it for you and ensure that you give birth to this child safely. Who knows, you might even be able to take a peek at the deity position." "Deity position?" The Queen of Silvermoon's expression changed, and she looked at the black-robed youth in surprise. The deity position, as long as it was mentioned, no cultivator would not be moved. If it were anyone else who mentioned the deity position, the Queen of Silvermoon might not believe it at all. But this youth beside her was different. In ancient times, the Queen of Tyene, the King of Red Flame, was a peerless powerhouse comparable to a true god. Such a character had died in the hands of Qin Feng. This was very convincing. Qin Feng grabbed with his hand, and a ball of ethereal light was born in his hand. It was like an illusory sun. An extremely mysterious wave was born from his hand. Rumble. The void seemed to have sensed this aura that was not within the range of heaven and earth, and it caused thunder to rumble. At this moment, countless powerhouses' expressions changed as they looked in the direction of the moonless forest. What kind of existence could actually attract the attention of the laws of heaven and earth? Qin Feng pointed with his other hand, and a mysterious light flew towards the Queen of Silvermoon's eyebrows. The queen did not dodge. She believed that Qin Feng had no reason to harm her. What fell into the queen's mind was a ball of memories. It was a ball of memories about the Divine Tree Continent and part of Qin Feng's experience in the Divine Tree Continent. A moment later, the Queen of Silvermoon opened her eyes and looked at the black-robed youth in front of her. Her eyes flashed with shock and surprise. No one would have thought that there would be such a mysterious place in the outer realm. What shocked her even more was that the black-robed youth in front of her had unified the entire continent. Thinking about the information she had seen at the end, she spoke. "You want this queen to become the underworld queen." Chapter 12:23. That's right, the underworld queen. Qin Feng nodded. The underworld queen was another deity position that had great potential, second only to the underworld king. This deity position had only been born with the birth of the nether moon. Qin Feng had used almost all of the underworld's providence to nurture this deity position. Without a doubt, once this deity position was formed, it would definitely be a third-grade deity position. And as the underworld expanded, its quality would also increase. With this deity position, the underworld's providence would be endless. Before the Queen of Silvermoon gave birth, she would definitely be safe and sound. The Queen of Silvermoon pondered. This was the best method at the moment. The primordial dragon ancestor's bloodline was extraordinary and took a long time to nurture. With the underworld queen deity position, whether it was personal safety or cultivation, it would be greatly beneficial. The only drawback was that she had to leave the Linghai continent. Leaving the Linghai continent was not a simple problem. She had to be clear of her own karma. The Queen of Silvermoon was born in the Linghai continent and was nurtured by the Linghai continent. The opportunities she obtained during cultivation and the spiritual qi she absorbed were all great karma. She had to be clear of them. Apart from that, she also needed absolute strength. If it was any other continent, the Queen of Silvermoon would definitely not be able to cross over. However, the primordial land was different. The primordial land was originally a subsidiary continent of the Linghai continent. Although it had obtained opportunities and perfected the laws of heaven and earth, it could produce and nurture deity positions. In fact, this continent was still a subsidiary of the Linghai continent. The two continents were of the same origin. If not, Qin Feng and the other experts who went to the primordial land to search for treasures would not have been able to leave the Linghai continent. Of course, if not for this reason, the life goddess would not have been so generous as to give the Divine Tree Continent to Qin Feng. After the Divine Tree Continent was upgraded, it was not something that the life goddess could control. The two continents were originally subsidiary. Naturally, there were not too many complicated conditions to enter the Divine Tree Continent. As long as one found the entrance, they could enter at will. This king agrees. Seeing that the Queen of Silvermoon agreed, Qin Feng secretly sighed in relief. "But I have another condition." Qin Feng nodded. "I want to move the entire Silvermoon clan into it." The Silvermoon Queen glanced at Qin Feng and said indifferently, "As the changes in the world intensify, I can foresee that the Spirit Sea continent will be filled with endless wars in the future. The Silver Moon clan can't take any more trouble. We need a place to rest and recuperate." As the Queen of Silvermoon's voice fell, there was a trace of regret in her heart. Although such a great world was dangerous and cruel, however, it was also a great opportunity that was hard to come by in countless eras. Unfortunately, the Silver Moon race was not strong enough. Now, many powerful races came out of their secluded caves to fight for the fate of heaven and earth, and for the position of overlord. With the strength of the Silver Moon clan, it was easy for them to become the target of those powerful clans. If that was the case, he might as well retreat to the Divine Tree Continent. From Qin Feng's memories, it could be seen that the Divine Tree Continent's foundation was not bad. There were many spiritual roots and spiritual herbs. especially since Qin Feng was the Nether King of the Divine Tree Continent. As the mother race of the Dark Empress, the Silver Moon clan could do whatever they wanted on that continent. Entering that place would not only allow the Silver Moon clan to recuperate and recover to their peak in a short period of time. Moreover, they might be able to improve even further. Although she did not guess Qin Feng's thoughts, she knew that Qin Feng would not just let the 9 Nether tribe hide on the Divine Tree Continent. For the fate of the underworld, there would be a great war in the future. Such a great war was the opportunity for the Silver Moon clan to rise from the ashes. Sure. Qin Feng agreed without much thought. This was a small matter. The Divine Tree Continent was vast with thousands of races. How could it not accommodate a small Silver Moon clan? The two of them discussed for a while, then Qin Feng left Tai Yin Peak. Time had never moved according to one's will. Qin Feng stayed in the Silver Moon clan and waited for the Silver Moon clan to prepare to move. However, it was raining heavily outside. The entire Spirit Sea continent was like a huge whirlpool in a storm with turbulent undercurrents. The changes in the world intensified, and some ancient peerless kings gradually came out of their sealed places and came to the world. The names of many ancient kings were circulating in the world again. It stirred up a storm in all directions. Although Qin Feng was in the Silver Moon clan, he could hear news of some kings or ruins appearing from time to time. The Scarlet Firmament Sword sect has been destroyed. On this day, Yin brought this news to Qin Feng. Ever since Qin Feng detonated the Scarlet Firmament Spirit Volcano and attacked by the Hell Phoenix, the Scarlet Firmament Sword sect's power had shrunk greatly. However, they were still able to stay in a corner and struggle at death's door. Although 2 years ago they were suppressed by the Heaven and Earth sect, Dynasty Profound sect, and the Golden Crow clan and Phoenix clan of the Savage Desolate Spirit Domain, they were still able to stand firm for the time being. As one of the 72 profound sects of the Spirit Sea continent, the Scarlet Firmament Sword sect had lost its power for a while. However, its foundation was still there, and many old antiques in the sect had awakened. Who would have thought that they would be the first of the 72 profound sects to be destroyed? It is said that they were destroyed by an evil god. It is said that this evil god is the evil god of raging flames, ranked 5th among the 72 evil pillar gods. After he destroyed the Scarlet Firmament Sword sect, he expelled the other sect's forces in the Scarlet Firmament Spirit Domain and established the Raging Flames Divine Kingdom. Yinling's face was pale when she said this information. The 72 evil pillar gods were all legendary Heaven Realm expert. Every one of them was an infamous figure, and the ones ranked at the top were all famous kings of the evil path. No one could remain calm when such a terrifying existence appeared. Qin Feng was expressionless. These days, he could hear news of an ancient expert, an ancient genius appearing almost every day. The evil god of raging flames was strong, but among the peerless existences that appeared, it could only be considered above average and not in the top 10. However, this was an ominous sign. Even one of the 72 profound sects, the Scarlet Firmament Sword sect, was destroyed. One could imagine the impact that the other sects received. If those ancient experts wanted luck, they would have to attack the original overlord position. Although Qin Feng sat calmly on the fishing platform, he could not help but feel a sense of urgency. With the Master God space, although he was not restricted to ordinary kings, he was not invincible. Moreover, in these few years, there would probably be quasi-emperors or divine kings appearing. Facing a divine king, even with Qin Feng's current strength, he was afraid that he would not be able to protect himself. It was urgent to increase his own cultivation. However, how could it be so simple to increase one's cultivation? For ordinary kings to increase one realm, even if they had a great opportunity, they would need hundreds of years, or at least dozens of years. Dozens of years, it was too long. Qin Feng had too many things in his hands that would make people jealous. for example, the Northern Spirit region. On the surface, the current overlord of the Northern Spirit region was the Biling sect. The Biling sect was at the bottom of the 72 profound sections. In the eyes of many ancient experts, it must be a soft persimmon that was easy to pinch. Chapter 12:24. A few decades was too long. Qin Feng was naturally not afraid of the current generation of sky prides. Of course, among the ancient antiques, there was no lack of true peerless figures. As long as they were given time, even if they did not become great emperors, becoming divine kings would not be a problem. In terms of strength, divine kings were not much inferior to great emperors. Qin Feng had only comprehended 11 celestial laws. Coupled with the power of the creator space, his combat power was not inferior to a strong great emperor boundary. However, he knew his limit. At this level, he might be able to suppress some middle celestial true gods or ordinary kings. However, if there were innate true gods or divine kings, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. However, to condense the 12th water elemental celestial law and become a great emperor boundary was easier said than done. As he pondered, Qin Feng raised his head and looked at Yinling. "What about the information I asked you to find about Xingqian School?" In the morning by the moon reflection lake, the mist was hazy. However, it could not hide the respect Yinling had for the black-robed young man in front of her. Hearing this, she immediately replied. Xingqian School was ambushed by experts from various sects 2 years ago. However, the Star Venerable at that time repelled them. According to the information from the experts of various sects, the calamity of Xingqian School 2 years ago was also the calamity of the Star Venerable who became a great emperor. Become a great emperor. Qin Feng's gaze moved slightly as he nodded in his heart. The Star Venerable had always been extremely mysterious. However, his strength was definitely far beyond that of an ordinary sect leader. It was not surprising that he became a great emperor. However, to be able to survive the calamity of becoming a great emperor at the beginning of the world, the probability of him becoming a divine king was probably very high. After that battle, what was the situation of the various sects in Xingqian School? After that battle, I heard in private that the battle was very tragic. Many higher-ups of Xingqian School died. However, there were also many experts from various sects and even the savage wilderness demon clan who died. Xingqian School seemed to have prepared for that battle and even activated the inescapable trap formation. After saying that, she sneered. Moreover, the Qiankuan sect, one of the powers that led the attack, also encountered great trouble later on. An evil ancestor appeared in the Qiankuan sect's hinterland. That evil ancestor gathered many powerful evil cultivators and almost destroyed the entire Qiankuan sect's dragon vein. Even the Qiankuan heavenly Tao stone, which was the foundation of the Qiankuan sect, was taken away. It could be said that the sect was exterminated. Yinling was gloating a little. Qin Feng's eyes flashed. The heavenly Tao stone was usually the foundation of a sect. If the heavenly Tao stone was stolen, from a certain perspective, the sect would be destroyed. The sixth evil ancestor was also cunning. Qin Feng had forced the sixth evil ancestor to swear an oath to the heavens that he would destroy the Qiankuan sect within 3 months. In a sense, the evil ancestor had already fulfilled his oath. However, even if the heavens Tao stone was taken away, in a sense, Qiankuan sect could not be considered to have perished. After all, their legacy, powerful beings, and territory were still around. When their base was attacked, the powerful beings of Qiankuan sect could only rush back to help. After losing their leader, Qiankuan sect, the other forces were like a sheet of loose sand. They quickly retreated. However, after the great battle 2 years ago, the sect master Star Venerable had already retired. Some people said that he was seriously injured and was unable to think about it. Others said that he had broken through to the king realm and was in seclusion to consolidate his cultivation. She glanced at Qin Feng and pondered for a moment before speaking. Now, the one in charge of Xingchen School is an unknown true disciple by the name of Crepe Star Venerable. Crepe Star Venerable? Qin Feng's eyes flickered. Yin Ling continued. I heard that this person is an unparalleled genius from one of the ancient eras of Xingchen School. He is also the reincarnation of the ancient Crepe Star Venerable. He is able to mobilize the power of billions of stars and is an ancient king. Her eyes were filled with admiration. How powerful was the power of billions of stars? To be able to mobilize the power of billions of stars, an expert of this level could only be in existence above the king realm. Crepe Star Venerable? Qin Feng's eyes flickered. Crepe Star Venerable was one of the 36 Archean main stars. Compared to the declining primeval star, Crepe Star Venerable was like the sun in the sky. On the continent, all the emperors were known as the reincarnation of Crepe Star Venerable. Among the 36 Archean main stars, Crepe Star Venerable was one of the most powerful. Only a few Archean stars could compare to it. If Primeval Star Venerable was the leader of the stars and the source of the stars, Crepe Star Venerable was the ruler of the stars and the emperor of the stars. When its power erupted, it was extremely powerful. Even Qin Feng's main god space could not compare to the power of Crepe Star Venerable. Qin Feng tilted his head and asked, By the way, have you heard any news about the birth of other star venerables over the years? Yin Ling said. Many powerful star venerables have been born over the years. For example, Su Shiji of the Hundred Rivers Domain, Wang Liang of the Ancient Star Domain, and the mysterious demon Venerable Tsang Tian, who is rumored to be the star venerable of the heavenly demon star. They are all outstanding talents of their time, and their strength is not inferior to some ancient antiques. Other than these 3 star venerables, there are many other star venerables who are outstanding in various sections. There are even more second-generation star venerables. Most of them are outstanding talents of their time, and their reputation is gradually rising. Star Venerable of the heavenly demon star was the sign of all the stars. This star Venerable of the heavenly demon star was known to bury all heavenly secrets. Although the second-generation star venerables like Merak and Knowledge Star were famous in various worlds for their divination, they were not the star venerables' match. Star Venerable of the heavenly demon star was the pillar of the heavens, and all the star venerables were people with unparalleled star power. Star Venerable of the heavenly demon star was the most strange and mysterious. It was the demon of the stars and the leader of all the malevolent stars in the world. It was the most difficult to deal with. Qin Feng was more familiar with Star Venerable of the heavenly demon star. This Star Venerable was his ally, Demon Venerable Tsang Tian. However, Qin Feng knew that the strongest Star Venerable had yet to be born. Among the 36 main stars, his primeval star, Emperor Star, Star Venerable, and Star Venerable were not the strongest. There would only ever be one strongest star, the primordial star. This star was the ancestor of all the stars, the god of all the stars. Qin Feng remembered that primordial star Venerable of the primordial star had another title, Primordial Star Venerable. This person would unite all the star venerables in the later stages of the Golden Era and establish a supreme star court. He would become one of the few chief god existences in the Golden Era. The Star Venerable. Ever since this Star Venerable was born, all the stars in the world respected him. There would no longer be a grand scene of stars descending into the world. Qin Feng shook his head slightly. In the world, when many star venerables were born, there would always be a competition to determine who would be the master. The winner would become the Star Venerable of all the stars, the Star Venerable of all the stars. The loser would be devoured or submit to the strong and pay tribute. As the primordial Star Venerable of the 36 main stars, he would definitely have a great battle with the primordial star Venerable in the future. This was a battle of the great Tao. In addition, as the water-type dragon Venerable, he could not avoid the battle of the water's providence. My cultivation is still not enough. Qin Feng waved his hand. Yin Ling understood and bowed slightly before leaving. Qin Feng's gaze landed on the huge galaxy in the void. The battle of the stars was just around the corner. He had to fight for more providence. Xingqian School and the realm of stars had to be in his hands. Naturally, the star Venerable of the Purple Star was the first stumbling block in front of him. Before Gong Ao returned, he had to take down this person and suppress him to take over Xingqian School. However, before that, there was one more thing to do. It was time to refine the primordial star. Chapter 12:25. There were many ways for the growth of the God realm. Qin Feng could not let go of the method of transforming the God realm into a star. Transforming a trace of the God realm's projection into a star and sending it to the various large worlds, borrowing the power of the various large continents to contain the God realm. This method did not seem to have much effect in the short term. However, as the number of stars projected by the God realm increased, it would eventually become a flood. Qin Feng's divine will moved to the huge God realm far away in the countless spacetime outside the Spirit Sea continent. In the depths of the endless gray spacetime, the Master God's space was extremely huge. It was slowly absorbing the chaotic Yuan Qi, spacetime energy, dimensional energy, and many other mysterious and unpredictable forces in the endless spacetime. It was slowly evolving. That was the outermost crystal wall system, which was the spacetime membrane. It could also be called the chaos membrane, earth membrane, and so on. A trace of divine will entered it, and the billowing vital qi appeared, transforming into a clone. At this moment, the God realm looked extremely vast, and one could not see the end of it. The continent was majestic. Spirit veins were growing. There was also a type of vital qi that could create all things being born from outside the crystal wall system. It merged with the chaotic continent and gave birth to some simple living beings, causing the depths of the God realm to become more luxuriant. Countless spirit roots became more lively. At this moment, the God realm could be said to be small, but it had all the vital organs. Rich connate vital qi was abundant, forming a fog that would not dissipate for 10,000 years, enveloping the entire chaotic continent. One could foresee that the chaotic continent was about to enter a period of rapid evolution. At the center of the continent was the chaotic mountain that seemed to be able to support the heavens and earth. This mountain was the origin of all mountains in this world, the ancestral vein of all worlds. The clone entered it. In the center of the chaotic mountain was Qin Feng's God Palace. The God realm appeared, and a huge ball of light transformed into countless white void. Stepping in, he seemed to have passed through a layer of world membrane. Without his permission, the living beings in the God realm would definitely not be able to find this place. If the God realm was divided into several layers, the outermost layer was the chaos membrane, followed by the central material world, and the core of the God realm was the God Palace. In the center of the God Palace, one could see the current situation of the God realm on the God realm's light ball. 2 stars appeared at the side of the light ball. That represented the coordinates of the God realm's God realm and the other continent. One was the White Snake continent where the immortal Tao was located. The other was the Divine Tree continent. The 2 balls of faint starlight emitted rays of formless starlight that connected to the sovereign's globe of light, as though they were constantly supplying nourishment to the sovereign's globe of light. Qin Feng's expression didn't change. Specks of godly power appeared around him like starlight. He raised a hand and drew a line with his finger, forming a silvery white star mark. This was the manifestation of the aura of the natal star imprint that represented his identity as the primeval Star Lord. This strand of life star imprint gradually formed an existence similar to the previous two stars beside the light ball, turning into a star phantom. However, it looked extremely illusory, as if it could shatter at any moment. When Qin Feng saw this, he pointed with his finger. A strand of Prime God space origin flew out from the Prime God's light ball and silently entered the star shadow. It was as if it had eaten a great tonic. The star shadow instantly turned from illusory to solid. At this moment, by the moon reflection lake, Qin Feng opened his eyes. Through the sensing of his natal star, he felt an extremely powerful force entering the primeval star from the void, causing the primeval star's foundation to increase greatly. He raised his head. In the billions of galaxies in the void, one of the stars suddenly shone brightly. The unparalleled starlight even covered the sun in the sky in an instant. Many powerful celestial lords or experts who cultivated the Tao of stars should have felt the change in the starlight. Another peerless expert has appeared. What a dazzling starlight! Many experts looked solemn. It seems to be in the domain of stars. In the depths of Xingqian School, above the Lingshao Hall, a young man in a purple-gold imperial robe closed his eyes and sensed with his divine consciousness. His aura was as deep as the sea, extremely profound and terrifying. Endless starlight surrounded him, as if he was the emperor among the celestial gods. Around him, many experts surrounded by starlight looked at the young man on the emperor's throne with respect. Countless starlight adorned the hall. In the hall, there were actually more than 50 reincarnated celestial lords gathered. However, most of them were third-generation celestial lords. Second-generation celestial lords were rare, and there were no first-generation celestial lords. Everyone was quiet. As everyone knew, the crepe myrtle star was the Emperor's star in the sky. This Emperor's star had a special ability. The more celestial lords gathered under it, the faster the cultivation speed. If they could subdue this new powerful celestial lord, the crepe myrtle star's power would undoubtedly increase exponentially. It's done. After fusing with the projection power of the creator space, the primeval star could be considered a projection of the creator space in the billions of galaxies. It could also be considered another celestial kingdom. However, at this moment, Qin Feng's expression changed. A mysterious force seemed to follow the long river of fate toward his figure, and its aura locked onto him. That force was extremely domineering, and it also had a supreme divine might that could control the world and nourish it. The power of the crepe myrtle star. Qin Feng didn't need to think too much to guess who the culprit was. The crepe myrtle star had a special ability. It was called the Emperor's star. The more stars it controlled, the more powerful it would be. Clearly, the crepe myrtle star had sensed his presence, and could not wait to subdue him. I'm just about to test your strength. Let's see if your crepe myrtle star is stronger or if my primeval star is stronger. Qin Feng's eyes shone with a burning fighting spirit. His fingers danced as he rapidly formed hand seals. A black and white copper coin appeared between his palms. The 6 Directions Godfiend Copper Coin. The 6 Directions Heaven Scripture Technique had 3 transformations. The 6 Directions Godfiend Compass, the 6 Directions Godfiend Flying Dagger, and the 6 Directions Godfiend Copper Coin. The first was to trace heaven and earth and understand the roots of all things. This was an unparalleled ability to analyze the laws of nature. The second was extremely powerful. The 6 Directions Godfiend Flying Dagger was said to be able to pierce through everything. The third was to conceal fate and see through all mysteries. It was a defensive treasure that could block sneak attacks. A 6-colored copper coin flew out and disappeared into the void above his head. Above the torrent of fate. The river of fate was boundless and huge. The fates of billions of living beings were entangled in it and were clearly separated. The 6-colored stream of light streaked through the fog and turned into an illusory figure that appeared in the river of fate. After cultivating the king's physique, He could already step into the domain of fate. Only then could he find the river of fate. He could feel the pressure coming from outside the river of fate. The illusory figure smiled faintly. The six-colored copper coin in his hand shone with a strong spiritual light of fate. The next moment, it turned into a stream of light and entered the depths of the river of fate. Crash! Qin Feng seemed to be able to see that above the eternally flowing river of destiny, there seemed to be a great fog that covered a part of the river of destiny. At that moment, a purple beam shone from above the river of fate. It seemed to be chasing after a trace of aura, searching the boundless river of fate. The purple light was mysterious, but it could not penetrate the thick fog of fate. It could only wander outside the fog. Interesting. In the numinous sky hall, the crepe myrtle star opened his eyes. A cold glint flashed in his eyes as his aura fluctuated. The crepe myrtle star's secret technique, the crepe myrtle astrology, was one of the strongest mystic techniques in this world to observe heaven and earth. He did not believe that he would lose to a star monarch that had suddenly appeared. Today, I will definitely find your traces. A sharp glint flashed in his eyes. He closed his eyes, and his hands moved like shadows as he formed countless seals. He sensed that a purple star among the billions of galaxies was shining brightly. Chapter 12:26. In ancient times, Emperor Myrtlestar's cultivation was earth-shattering, and this crepe myrtle star diviner was his masterpiece in the spirit sea realm. It could integrate a cultivator's own fate into the operation of the stars in the universe, borrowing the power of the stars to observe the operation of the heavenly Tao, the fate of all living beings, and the general trend of the world and the trend of the mountains and rivers. However, even though Myrtlestar's star had advanced to the position of king in ancient times and was only half a step away from the quasi-emperor realm, once he fully activated the crepe myrtle star diviner and integrated his fate into the operation of the stars in the universe, it was abnormally strenuous. After all, to integrate one's own strength into the operation of the stars was just a drop in the ocean. Not only did it consume one's essence, chi, and spirit extremely quickly, but it was also easy to get lost. However, the crepe myrtle star diviner was very profound. With the deduction, the originally foggy trajectory of fate began to show a clear trajectory in the deduction. The fog of fate was forcibly peeled away, and he approached the truth layer by layer. On the shore of the moon reflection lake, Qin Feng's statue-like body suddenly shook violently, and a trace of blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. Crack! He seemed to see a six-colored copper coin being shattered inch by a huge force, and his own secrets were about to be exposed under the great probing power of the unseen. Cough cough, what a terrifying guy. I have to admit that in terms of divination, I am inferior to you. He reached out to wipe the blood at the corner of his mouth, and wisps of white hair vaguely appeared on the top of his head, and the majestic vitality in his body also decreased a little. Fate's backlash. However, even so, you can forget about finding where I am. His divine thoughts moved, and a trace of fluctuating power in the chief god's space was triggered. Boom! The fog was pushed aside, and an indescribably terrifying power suddenly bloomed, blasting toward the purple light above the long river of fate. Bang! In the starry sky above the Lingshao Palace, Myrtlestar's star suddenly opened his eyes, and the countless pillars of stars above his head suddenly collapsed, turning into countless fragments. Intense starlight bloomed around him, and a huge star appeared behind him. It was a purple, indescribably precious and mysterious star. An indescribably huge force bombarded the star, and purple light bloomed. Unparalleled power swept out from the mysterious star, instantly shattering that force. Myrtlestar's star's body shook. Rumble! A huge shockwave spread out. Not good! Dodge! The expressions of many star venerates in the hall changed drastically. However, it was already too late to dodge. An invisible force swept out like a stormy sea. His figure flashed. Bang, bang, bang. A figure flew out as if struck by a huge force and slammed into a pillar in the main hall without any resistance. The collision caused the huge star pillar to make banging sounds. After a long time, Star Sovereign Myrtlestar's expression changed. He only recovered after a long time. His gaze swept across the many star sovereigns in the hall, who were in a sorry state. Crack! Suddenly, a slight sound resounded. He glanced over and noticed that the golden divine throne beneath him had actually been blasted apart by that terrifying force. Interesting! A sneer appeared in his eyes. He shook his sleeves, and an invisible force calmed down the aftershocks in the hall. The primordial Star Lord's final attack was very powerful. If not for that, he would have long found the primordial Star Lord's location and locked onto his whereabouts to capture him. He thought coldly in his heart. Primordial Star Lord, as I gather Xingqian School's providence and improve my cultivation, I will be able to capture you one day. Everyone on the side was shocked when they saw this. They looked at each other with a trace of shock. Everyone had witnessed Star Sovereign Myrtlestar's strength. He was the son of Emperor Myrtlestar, a peerless existence at the peak of the King Realm and a half-step sub-emperor. Some of the veteran kings were no match for Star Sovereign Myrtlestar. Even among the peerless kings who had appeared in the world, he was definitely ranked in the top 10. His Myrtlestar divinatory art had an unfathomable ability. It could calculate all the secrets of heaven and take the initiative in every aspect. That nameless Star Lord could actually resist Star Sovereign Myrtlestar's divination. It was truly unbelievable. Beside the silver moon lake, Qin Feng's expression was gloomy. Even using the power of the chief god space did not gain the upper hand. It seems that Star Sovereign Myrtlestar's identity in the ancient era must be extraordinary. Feeling the invisible fate scar in his body, he activated the 8 Desolation immortal body, and rich divine light of life washed through his body. A layer of rich light circulated around him. After cultivating the 8th level of the 8 Desolation immortal heaven scroll to the Sage Emperor realm, Qin Feng's body seemed to contain the vitality of a continent. Although he had lost a portion of his life essence by prying into fate and suffered a backlash, it was not enough to make him feel heartache. As the 8 Desolation immortal heaven scroll circulated, it was as if an endless stream of life treasures came from the northern spirit region in the endless depths of time and space. The portion of life essence he had lost was instantly replenished. The fate scar left behind by the fate backlash rapidly faded under this cleansing and finally dissipated. The white hair on his head turned black inch by inch, and his skin was sparkling. There was a faint layer of silver-white divine light circulating around his body, illuminating his entire body as if he was incomparably divine and lively. "Are you okay?" Looking at the silver-haired girl who had unknowingly arrived beside him, Qin Feng shook his head slightly. His foundation was extremely strong. Such a small backlash could not hurt him at all. "Are you all ready?" Yuji nodded lightly. "We are ready and can leave at any time." Her expression was filled with emotion. She had already obtained a portion of the truth from the Queen of Silver Moon. It was hard to imagine that the black-robed youth in front of her had actually become so powerful after just one trip to the eastern wilderness god trove. He actually controlled a huge continent in his hands. The Silver Moon clan was entering the Divine Tree continent in an orderly manner. Using the relationship between the primeval star and the Lord God space, the Silver Moon clan completed this transition very smoothly with the Lord God space as the middle station. They went to the Lord God space and then directly entered the Nether Moon through the connection between the Lord God space and the Underworld Moon. Over there, all the arrangements were made by Qin Feng's avatar of the Netherworld King. Qin Feng's gaze swept across the surroundings. Everything that could be taken away in the Moonless Forest was taken away by the Silver Moon clan. What replaced it was a large array that enveloped the forest. As per the Queen of Silver Moon's request, it protected the home that the Silver Moon clan had lived in for countless years. Looking at the fog formed by the array covering the entire moonless forest and finally enveloping the entire Silver Moon clan's homeland, Qin Feng's figure flew out. He pondered for a moment and looked in the direction of the star sect. Crepe Myrtle Star. If he wanted to take down Xingqian School, he could not avoid Crepe Myrtle Star. However, with his current strength, he was only on par with Crepe Myrtle Star. He was even at a disadvantage. Most importantly, Qin Feng did not know much about Crepe Myrtle Star's background. Chapter 12:27. Although Qin Feng was not afraid of killing, he was not brainless. Knowing that the other party was stronger than him and still charging forward, that was not bravery but courting death. I have to raise my cultivation level in a short time, Qin Feng frowned. There were still some treasures and inheritance locations in his memory, but those things were not of much help to him now. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes. He had to break through to the Boundary Emperor realm in a few years. After he entered the Divine Tree continent, many postnatal deity positions had appeared in the Spirit Sea continent. But it was expected that more postnatal deity positions would appear in succession. In a few years, there would be a culmination deity position. Not to mention the imminent battle with Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch. Qin Feng had to ensure that he had the capital to fight for a connate origin deity position before the culmination deity position appeared. If necessary, he had to snatch a culmination deity position as a guarantee. After thinking about it, Qin Feng did not have many choices. There were two main choices. One was to return to the Divine Tree continent and think of a way to attack the other 5 continents of the primordial lands. If he could take the other continents and use the providence of the underworld to expand, he would definitely be able to condense the 12th water-type heavenly law in the shortest time possible and become a boundary emperor. The second was to use the chief god space to find new lands outside the realm and plunder them. This was a huge profit. In the White Snake continent, just one plunder allowed him to condense the 11th water-type heavenly law and still have a lot left. It was enough to show the benefits. As for the first choice, Qin Feng gave up on it after some consideration. It was not realistic. The Divine Tree continent of the primordial lands had the protection of an ancient true god like the goddess of life, Lu Qi. The other continents were obviously guarded by existences of similar strength. The goddess of life, Lu Qi, was an ancient connate origin true god and was extremely powerful. Before she broke through to the lord level, her strength was not inferior to some godly kings. Those 5 existences of the same level as her were definitely not inferior to the goddess of life. How could those true gods watch their hopes of becoming a lord level fall into Qin Feng's hands? What Qin Feng estimated the most were the peerless powerhouses that had entered the ancient lands not too long ago. Wang Daoi, Gong Ao, and other similar existences were definitely not weaker than Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign. If they were to attack other continents, they would definitely encounter them or the factions they created. On the other hand, the second choice could maximize Qin Feng's advantage. In the creator space, his real body faced the blazing white ball of light god. With a thought, the creator space began to automatically set up a space-time dimension node. In Qin Feng's perception, this search was similar to frequency modulation, just like the radio recorded in the foreign visitor's mind. However, the frequency was no ordinary frequency. It was the frequency of spatial fluctuations. This kind of frequency seemed to be separated by countless space-time dimensions. It was extremely subtle. Only an incredible existence like the creator space could sense and capture it. The hope of this resonance was extremely small. Generally, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack to find the resonance frequency. Normally, the main god space would search based on spacetime coordinates. Just like the world of White Snake, it would use the foreign visitor and a portion of the immortal Tao nomological laws of the great emperor of the Eastern Peak as the basis for coordinates. This time, Qin Feng was not prepared to continue to the wilderness immortal Tao world for the time being. He was prepared to search for another, a new world outside. The wilderness immortal Tao world was too dangerous. It had many Tao ancestors and was invading other world. If he was discovered at this time, who knew what terrible things would happen? Qin Feng was prepared to wait for several months. But to his surprise, this time, he discovered a resonating wave that emitted a spiritual radiance at a relatively fast speed. These coordinates emitted star-like light. Although he did not know if the world indicated by these coordinates was as powerful as the wilderness immortal Tao world, Qin Feng could sense that this new spacetime coordinate would definitely not be dominated by the immortal Tao nomological laws. He could vaguely sense that the essence of the coordinates was very close to the Spirit Sea continent. In other words, it was similar to the star nomological laws. However, that coordinate world was definitely not weak. Qin Feng could sense that it would not be easy for the main god space to penetrate the outer defenses of that coordinate world. However, should I transmigrate with my real body or my avatar? After thinking for a moment, Qin Feng immediately shook his head. The cost of transmigrating with his real body was too great. That plane was extremely powerful. Using his real body would not only cost too much, but it would also be too dangerous. Moreover, deity thrones were appearing one after another in the Spirit Sea continent. Once a suitable water-type deity throne appeared, he would definitely participate in the fight. My real body oversees the Spirit Sea. This time, I'll use my avatar to transmigrate. Sovereign power, open the spacetime tunnel. Begin transmigration calculation. Following Qin Feng's thoughts, the entire main god palace began to emit a layer of inconceivable divine light. In the air above the main god light sphere, a coordinate under the main god's spacetime power began to shine brightly. Far away, the main god space's origin energy was being mobilized and poured into the coordinate. Seeing the endless main god space's energy being consumed, Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a pained look. Every time he transmigrated to the main god space, it was an investment. The space-time coordinate was like a black hole, rapidly devouring the main god space's energy. After devouring about 80% of the main god space's energy, Qin Feng vomited blood when he saw that the coordinate began to change. It transformed into a huge invisible vortex that led to the depths of the unknown. F***ck, this is a huge loss. 80% of the main god space's origin energy is stored in it. If I don't get anything this time, the main god space will naturally need to recuperate for at least 100 years before it can regain its power. Qin Feng's expression was gloomy. The main god space's energy used to transmigrate to the White Snake world was not even 1% of the energy used this time. However, Qin Feng knew the reason. The main reason was that that world was too far away, and the space-time ratio was different. In short, you get what you pay for. Doppelganger out! He stretched out a hand, and a ball of silver-white light appeared in his palm. Traces of memories were peeled off and poured into it. It carried almost all the complete memories of the main body. Of course, Qin Feng also did many things secretly. He ensured that his main body could completely control this doppelganger. Even if it was captured by some almighty, it would not hinder the main body. After revealing the main body's secrets, he sent it into the vortex where the space-time coordinate was changing. In the Star River continent, there were 33 incomparably huge galaxies in the sky. Each galaxy was formed by countless stars, spanning across the endless sky. The continent worshipped the way of cultivation. Existences with outstanding perception, after a certain ceremony, could sense the existence of countless stars in the 33 galaxies in the sky and absorb the power of the stars to refine their bodies. As long as they could sense their natal stars, they would be able to condense and awaken their own star martial soul, becoming a powerful soul martial artist. There were many kinds of star martial souls. There were tool martial souls, plant martial souls, beast martial souls, and so on. Every expert, once their martial soul was confirmed, it would not change for the rest of their lives. However, according to each person's aptitude, the quality of each person's martial soul would be different. Naturally, there were also different grades. Chapter 12:28 Star River Continent, West Chu Empire, Giant Spirit City. Wang Family. The whole city was filled with mourning, especially the Wang family's mournful atmosphere. On the tall and glorious Vermilion Gate building, there were white lanterns that represented an ominous atmosphere. This represented the death of an important figure in the Wang family. At this time, in an exquisite small attic. This seemed to be the core of the Wang family's backyard. The servants were like clouds, countless maids, and children were shuttling back and forth. At first glance, one could tell that this was not an ordinary small family. In the attic, in a small cradle, a cute baby opened his eyes and looked at the dome of the attic with a very strange expression. "Damn, I killed my biological father as soon as I came here. I'm so unlucky." This baby was none other than the reincarnation of a strand of Qin Feng's divine clone. It must be said that his luck this time was not bad. His luck when he was reincarnated was also not bad. The Wang family was not only a simple rich family, but also one of the few powerful families in Giant Spirit City. This was much stronger than crossing over to the slums. Especially his nominal biological father was the most outstanding expert of this generation of the Wang family. Unfortunately, I'm afraid someone is targeting this biological father. Many lights flashed in the baby's eyes. If an ordinary person saw this kind of gaze, they would be very scared. A baby actually had such a complicated expression. In fact, there was a hidden origin about the identity of this baby. His current identity was the grandson of the Wang family, the direct descendant of the fifth branch of the current Wang family head. The current Wang family head personally named him. The Wang family head was his biological grandfather. He was called Wang Xian. His father was the most outstanding disciple of the fifth branch of the Wang family, Wang Xuani. His mother was the #1 beauty of the West Chu Empire, Feng Yi. In fact, Qin Feng knew that his body was actually swapped when Feng Yi gave birth. His real father was a cunning elder of the side branch. That black-hearted elder also happened to have a concubine who gave birth. When Feng Yi was attacked during childbirth, she was immersed in the thought that Wang Xuani was sneak-attacked, plotted against, and died in battle. She quietly swapped the real Wang Xian. A leopard cat swapped the crown prince. That black-hearted elder of the side branch, who was the biological father of Qin Feng's body, thought that he did it secretly. Little did he know that everything was in Qin Feng's eyes. However, Qin Feng was happy to do so. No matter which aristocratic family it was, there was a difference in treatment between the direct line of descent and the collateral line of descent. The direct descendants were born to wield power. As for the branch family members, they would be nurtured differently from a young age. They could only be butlers and high-level fighters. Even if he did well, he would at most become an elder of the Wang family's elder council like this body's biological father. The infant tried to sense the spiritual qi in this world, guiding it into his body to nourish it. Wisps of unusually agile spiritual energy appeared in his soul sense. The spiritual energy carried a faint silver brilliance. Qin Feng analyzed it with his soul consciousness and discovered that this spiritual qi contained an extremely rich astral energy. He thought to himself, "Looks like this continent should be dominated by the laws of stars." Most of the foreign continents had a special kind of law of heaven and earth. For example, the Spirit Sea realm focused on the laws of martial arts and contained many other laws. However, it also rejected some other laws, such as the laws of immortal Tao. In the Spirit Sea continent, it was difficult to cultivate immortal Tao power. It was like the primeval desolate continent, where the immortal Tao was the main principle and the divine Tao was the auxiliary principle. However, the Eldritch continent was different from the Spirit Sea continent. It did not reject other laws. Obviously, the Eldritch continent was of a higher level than the Spirit Sea continent. It should be in the category of the 33 heavenly realms like the sovereign immortal realm continent and the divine realm continent. This Star River continent was obviously dominated by the laws of stars. Qin Feng tried to use some of the immortal Tao techniques he obtained from the White Snake world. He quickly discovered that the immortal Tao techniques could not be used here. He tried to use the witchcraft techniques again, but the spirit Tao techniques could not be used. Only by using the martial Tao techniques could he successfully absorb a wisp of spiritual energy. Wisps of silver-white spiritual energy entered the infant's body, causing his skin to glow like a holy infant. Feeling his internal organs being nourished, Qin Feng concluded in his heart. Although the laws of this world are special, they are similar to those of the Spirit Sea continent. Although I can't cultivate immortal Tao and some of the martial Tao techniques are not suitable, I should be able to create the most suitable technique for myself after analyzing it for a while. Hurry up and carry the young master over. Do you maidservants and nannies want to die? You let the young master stay alone in the attic for so long. You don't even know if he's hungry or thirsty. How can you be so careless? If the young master cries, none of you will live. Qin Feng heard a familiar angry voice in the distance outside the attic. 13th Elder, it's our negligence. We'll go right away, right away. A group of nannies and maidservants said in fear and trepidation. Soon, footsteps could be heard. A large group of nannies and maidservants ran in. Following them was a black-clothed middle-aged man with a long beard. He looked very dignified. Looking at the infant in the cradle, a hint of affection flashed in his eyes. The infant's eyes widened. This good-looking black-clothed middle-aged man was none other than his cunning and treacherous biological father. His appearance was very good. His sleeves fluttered, and his eyes shone with a dignified aura. It was hard to look straight at him. Among the elders of the Wang family, his ability and status were quite outstanding. His strength far exceeded that of ordinary elders, and he was second only to the first elder and the 7th elder. If not for the fact that he was from a side branch, his status would probably be even higher. Wang Kuang was furious. After Wang Xuanyi died in battle, these people dared to neglect the 5th branch. He couldn't care less if they neglected the 5th branch, but he couldn't let his son go hungry. At this moment, a group of nannies and maidservants carried little Wang Xian and brought over a milk bottle. They all came forward to feed him. Seeing this group of people come forward with a milk bottle, Wang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. He wouldn't be able to handle it if it was done manually. After all, he was an adult. It was already awkward enough that they had to change his clothes. If they had to feed him, "What are you doing?" Wang Kuang shouted angrily when he saw a nanny come forward with a milk bottle. The nanny was so frightened that she trembled and quickly knelt on the ground. 13th Master, this is the Thunder Leopard's milk that the head butler just sent over. The head butler said that this milk is best for shaping a baby's body and cleansing the bones and meridians. You, in the cradle, Wang Xian's eyes lit up. The Thunder Leopard was a mutated beast. The milk produced by its mother was indeed very beneficial to a baby's body. This was one of the benefits of having a good background. Ordinary families, even wealthy ones, couldn't get their hands on this milk if they didn't have the power of the Wang family. Who would have thought that Wang Xian's cheap father would stare at the nannies and maidservants with a gloomy expression? Bullsh *T. Do you want the young master to become a lowly cultivator? How dare you give him something like this? Are you courting death? Go, send the young master to the 5th young mistress. Only by drinking breast milk and being nourished by the young mistress's breast milk will the young master have a chance to awaken his star martial spirit. The young master will become a spirit martial artist in the future and not those lowly ordinary cultivators. Yes, 13th Master. We will do it immediately. The nanny nodded repeatedly and got up from the ground. She carried the baby in the cradle and headed towards Feng Yi's room. Although the nanny was flustered, she looked at the baby in her arms with a strange expression. Normally, babies would either sleep or cry for half a month. However, this young master was indeed unusual. He rarely cried, especially when he was so hungry today. His eyes were still so spirited, so lively. For a moment, the nanny even saw anticipation, complexity, and excitement in the young master's eyes. Anticipation, complexity, and excitement. The nanny felt that she must be thinking too much. How could a baby have such a complicated expression? Perhaps it was because he was the son of a spirit martial artist. She concluded that the son of a spirit martial artist would be nourished by the spirit martial artist from the womb. Most of them were full of spirituality. She was envious. In the end, spirit martial artists were the overlords of the continent. With the sound of footsteps, the group of people had already arrived in front of the fifth young mistress Feng Yi's pavilion. Breast milk. Little did they know that the baby's mind was running wild. The baby knew that the number one beauty of the West Chu Empire, Feng Yi, was not his biological mother. Chapter 12:29. 6 years later. In the Wang family mansion, the Star Martial Spirit Awakening ceremony was being held in a huge round arena. In the middle of the arena, there was an altar with a huge bronze cauldron on top of it. A large number of Wang family elders and disciples gathered around the circular sparring field. Their gazes were fixed on the altar in the center. Beside the altar, a few elders in white elder robes whispered to each other from time to time. Their gazes would occasionally land on a 7- or 8-year-old youth on the altar. I wonder what Wang Li's aptitude is like? What kind of star martial spirit will he awaken? What kind can it be? Our Wang family is famous for the 8-winged purple flame lion bloodline. Most of the Wang family disciples will awaken a lion-type martial spirit. You can't say it like that. Even if they have the same bloodline, there are 6 and 9 grades. The 8-winged purple flame lion is one of the few supreme grade martial spirits in our West Chu Empire. Only a few people in the Wang family can awaken the 8-winged purple flame lion beast spirit. Most of them are 2-winged low grade, 4-winged middle grade, and 6-winged upper grade martial spirits are rare. Wang Li is not of the direct bloodline. He is just an ordinary disciple of the side branch. I think it will be difficult for him to awaken a 2-winged purple flame lion. These side branch disciples always want to reach the heavens in one step, daydreaming. I don't think it is strange for him to awaken a trash martial spirit. A group of laughter sounded in his ears. Wang Xian closed his eyes and looked indifferent. The 6-year-old Wang Xian looked like he was 10 years old. He closed his eyes and had a kind of ethereal temperament that was different from the other young boys. After a glance, it was unforgettable. On the other side of the stage, many elders were looking at the 5-6-year-old boys. Many of them had a strange look in their eyes. This Wang Xian was a famous child prodigy in the Wang family. At the age of 6, he did not need anyone to take care of him. He could move freely and learn to speak. At the age of 2, he could read. At the age of 3, he learned almost all the languages and could read many classics in the Wang family library. At the age of 5, he was like a little adult. He was steady and wise. This Wang Xian was not like an ordinary 6-year-old child. Ordinary 6-year-old children would still act spoiled in front of their parents and only know how to play. Wang Xian, on the other hand, would often stay in the library for an entire day. Many of the older generation experts in the clan were full of praise for this child. Many of them took a few glances before looking away. So what if he read a lot of books? The most important thing was still his martial spirit. The quality of the martial soul was the key to becoming an expert. If he awakened a trash martial spirit, no matter how many books he read, he would still be trash. Wang Xian's expression was calm. In the past 6 years, he had tried his best to behave normally. However, even so, he had gained quite a bit of fame in the Wang clan. For example, genius, prodigy, and so on. His gaze landed on the 2 youths on the left, who were like stars surrounding the moon. These 2 youths, one in green and the other in purple, were about 12 or 13 years old. Many of the Wang family's elders and disciples were looking at the 2 of them. These 2 could be said to be the outstanding talents of this generation of Wang clan disciples. One of them was Wang Yi, the purple-clothed young man from the main branch. The other was from the second branch, Wang Yuan, the green-clothed young man. Before the age of 12 or 13, the 2 of them had already cultivated their soul power to 70% of the human rank. This was not far from the peak of the human rank 9th layer. Once they crossed it, they would be at the yellow rank. Among 1,000 human rank martial artists, there might not even be one yellow rank martial artist. However, no one knew that Wang Xian had already cultivated his soul power to the 9th layer of the human rank a year ago. If it wasn't for the fact that his martial spirit had not awakened and he had obtained a soul ring, he would have already advanced. However, Wang Xian was secretly curious about the martial spirit. The martial spirit was settled in the bloodline. Only by summoning the power of the stars on the altar would there be a chance of awakening it. The quality of the martial spirit was divided into high and low rank. The lowest was the blank martial spirit. That was also called a trash martial spirit or a trash martial spirit. The blank martial spirit had no value. Although it could form an attack, the strength of the attack was not enough to kill a chicken. Next were the low-grade martial spirits, middle-grade martial spirits, high-grade martial spirits, and the top transcendent grade martial spirits, and the rumored peerless grade martial spirits. However, the peerless grade martial spirits were too rare. However, Wang Xian knew that the martial spirit of the West Chu Empire's royal family was the peerless grade martial spirit. There were many types of martial spirit. The main ones were the tool spirit, beast spirit, plant spirit, and so on. It's awakened. While he was deep in thought, a cry of surprise suddenly sounded in his ears. At this moment, Qin Feng's extremely sensitive soul could feel a surge of mysterious power exploding from the altar in the middle. He opened his eyes and a layer of brilliant starlight shook from the altar, accompanied by a domineering and direct roar of a lion king. A burly lion covered in purple flames appeared behind the young man on the altar. 2 purple flames formed a pair of wings, making the giant lion look even more mystical. 2-winged purple flame lion, low-grade martial spirit, next. Seeing this scene, one of the hosting elders on the side suddenly shouted indifferently. Soon, the strange scene disappeared and the young man on the altar stood up. He stretched out a hand and a miniature 2-winged purple flame lion appeared in his palm. He slightly pursed his lips, but there was not much joy on his face. A low-grade martial spirit was, after all, a low-grade martial spirit. At most, his future achievements would be to take charge of some business in a branch of the Wang family. In the eyes of many ordinary people, such a future was already a great achievement. However, in the eyes of the few tyrants in the giant holy city, the Wang family, it was really like dust. How could this not make people depressed? Next, Wang Yu. Soon, a layer of gray light burst out from the altar and turned into a faint shadow of a 2-winged purple flame lion, which looked extremely unstable. White-grade martial spirit, next. The young man named Wang Yu was almost dragged down the altar. Many people looked at the pale and dazed young man and shook their heads. There was pity in their eyes. A white-grade martial spirit could not absorb any soul power. This was the byproduct of a failed martial spirit awakening. It was equivalent to a trash existence and did not have any value. A person who had awakened a martial spirit could not break through the yellow rank, no matter how much he cultivated in his lifetime. One could imagine his future. Next, Wang San. One by one, many disciples of the Wang family walked up the altar one after another. Except for a few failed white-grade martial spirits, most of them awakened low-grade martial spirit. Among them, the majority were the purple flame lion martial spirit. Among them, there were also a few who awakened other martial spirits, such as the plant type and the tool type. These mutated individuals might have been influenced by their mother's bloodline. In general, there were very few middle-grade martial spirits among the branch families. Soon, it was the turn of a white-clothed child. In fact, Qin Feng had been observing the white-clothed child. He was only around 6 years old. The white-clothed child looked very determined and nervous. However, he looked like he was made of jade and was exceptionally handsome. Paying attention to this child was not because Qin Feng had changed his hobby and liked boys, but because this person's identity was not ordinary. He was the son of the 13th elder, Wang Kuang, Wang Xian. In fact, he was the real Wang Xian who had been replaced. Chapter 1230. Although 13th elder Wang Kuang was black-hearted, he didn't kill the real Wang Xian. Wang Xian's expression was a little strange as he looked at Wang Xian, who was dressed in white satin and looked like a quiet young master. All these years, he had been living on the same bed with Feng Yi. He was an adult, not a real baby. Moreover, Feng Yi was indeed worthy of the title of the #1 beauty in West Chu. Her figure and appearance were almost flawless. It was no wonder that some experts wanted to kill Wang Xian's father, Wang Xuani. Such a beauty was a gift from heaven and earth. It was no longer enough to describe her as a disaster. Although Wang Xuani was a big shot, how could he enjoy such a beauty? Scenes of him sleeping with Feng Yi all these years flashed through his mind, and he smiled. At this moment, many people were looking at Wang Xian. 13th elder was the representative of the collateral branch in the Wang family. He firmly controlled a part of the Wang family's interests and had the support of many outstanding figures in the collateral branch. No one could be underestimated. Even the patriarch. Wang Xian started early and his aptitude is not bad. He reached the 3rd level of the human class at the age of 6. If he had a few more years, reaching the 7th or 8th level of the human class should be easy. That's right. 13th elder's cultivation and talent are the best of our generation. Like father, like son. How can Wang Xian's talent be weak? Yes, 13th elder broke through to the Xian class a few days ago. I'm afraid there aren't many Xian class experts in the 3 major families of giant spiritual city. On the high platform, many elders looked at Wang Kuang with a hint of respect. Wang Kuang stroked his black beard with an indifferent expression. This Wang Kuang has been cultivating for many years, and his scheming has deepened. No wonder he can hold the hearts of the elders in the collateral branch. This person really can't be underestimated. No wonder he's called Black Wolf. The elders at the side secretly looked at each other and saw the shock and fear in each other's eyes. Wang Xian's martial soul. A trash martial soul. A huge fluctuation surged on the altar, and the huge pressure far exceeded that of an ordinary high-grade martial soul. However, in front of the elders and disciples of the Wang family was a grayish-white, basketball-sized wingless purple flame lion. Wow, so he's a piece of trash? As expected, the side branches always produce such trash. So what if his father is an elder of the Wang clan? A side branch bloodline is still a side branch bloodline. This kind of trash doesn't make much of a difference. The group of Wang family elders and disciples discussed fervently as they stared disdainfully at the 6-year-old white-robed child. Many of the elders on the high platform shook their heads as they looked at Wang Kuang. Contrary to their expectations, this elder was unexpectedly calm. Wang Kuang smiled. Of course he was calm. He wasn't even his own son. So what if he was a piece of trash? With his power, he could afford to raise a piece of trash. His hope was there. He looked at the expressionless Wang Xian and cheered inwardly. Such a state of mind that could remain unfazed by honor and disgrace was destined to be extraordinary. However, he couldn't help but feel puzzled. In the past, Wang Xuani could be said to be extremely talented. His mutated transcendent martial spirit was said to be comparable to a peerless martial spirit. Feng Yi's aptitude was also unusual. She was a famous genius of the Feng family in the West Chu Empire. Logically speaking, the son of the two of them shouldn't be a piece of trash. Wang Xian was carried up by 2 Wang family disciples in a daze. Wang Kuang waved his hand slightly, and 2 maids came forward to bring him down. After that, the martial spirit awakening ceremony continued. The direct descendants entered and walked up the altar. Trash? I'm afraid not. On the side, Qin Feng slightly closed his eyes and secretly shook his head. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to feel the strangeness of the grayish-white wingless lion. His original body was an invincible king, so he could indeed feel that slight difference. The gray wingless lion's nature was far different from an ordinary blank martial spirit. Although after reincarnation, his powerful soul was sealed in his body, and he couldn't pinpoint what was different about it, this feeling was unmistakable. Pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, maybe he can counterattack? Is the protagonist mode about to start? Qin Feng's expression was strange. However, he still lacked a few villains to slap his face. That's not right. Isn't his identity a villain? He stole someone's identity, status, and everything else. Qin Feng had a feeling that perhaps the martial spirit he awakened this time wouldn't be too simple. This way, he would be able to achieve the initial impression of a villain. This is really exciting. Qin Feng was eager to give it a try. Of course, this also sounded the alarm for Qin Feng. The appearance of the Son of Providence was usually accompanied by a calamity. For example, the invasion of an extraterrestrial expert like him. This was very likely one of the countermeasures of the Xing He continent. Wang Yumei of the 6th branch, high-grade martial spirit 6-winged purple flame lion. The current head of the Wang family had a total of more than 10 sons and 8 or 9 daughters. However, the direct descendants only had the 6th branch. The head of this generation of the 6th branch was Wang Xianyun. This head of the 6th branch was not outstanding. He had only been married for a few years. His wife was the daughter of another big family in the giant holy city. At present, the only one under his command was Wang Yumei. Here to explain, the son and daughter of the main wife can be called the son and daughter of the main wife. The children of the concubines are all concubines, and the collateral family refers to the clansmen outside the 3 generations of the main family. On the altar, after sending away a beautiful 11 or 12-year-old girl with a happy face, the presiding elder shouted loudly, "Next, Wang Xian of the 5th branch, please come to the stage." Hearing this voice, Qin Feng's spirit was slightly shaken. At this moment, it seemed that all the elders and disciples of the Wang family had their eyes on Wang Xian, who was like an elegant young master. In a loft, behind a curtain covered by pink gauze, a little maid excitedly said to a tall woman beside her, "Madam, it's our young master's turn. Look." This was an extremely beautiful woman. Her entire body was overflowing with a mature aura like a peach. She was a peerless beauty. Even though she was separated by the pink veil, many Wang family elders couldn't help but feel their blood boil and their heartbeats quicken just by looking at her through the veil. Although she didn't say anything, a pair of eyes as bright and beautiful as autumn water stared at Wang Xian. Following her gaze, many gazes fell on Wang Xian. Their eyes were red with jealousy and hatred. To be able to spend time with such a beauty, Even if it meant losing a few years of their lives, they would be willing. On the high platform, in the elders' seats, Wang Quang's expression was calm, neither happy nor angry. However, the hand hidden in his sleeves was tightly clenched. On the edge of the circular arena, Qin Feng stood up from his seat. At this moment, an 11 or 12-year-old youth suddenly laughed. Wang Xian, you are a famous prodigy in the Wang family. This time, don't disappoint us. If you awaken a trash martial soul, I'm afraid we won't be able to justify it. The direct descendants do not raise trash. He was dressed in luxurious silk and looked exceptionally delicate. This was because his lips were thin, giving him a harsh and sharp impression. Wang Menglin, the son of a concubine of the eldest branch. Everyone in the Wang family knew that this person was Wang Ye's lapdog. Qin Feng glanced at him. Next to him were Wang Yi from the eldest branch, and Wang Yuan from the second branch. Wang Xuani from the fifth branch, who was also his biological father in name, was the most popular candidate for the next head of the Wang family. He even overshadowed the eldest and second sons of the first and second sons of the first branch. Ever since Wang Xuani's death, these people had caused trouble for him. He was not surprised that they would jump out now. He calmly walked across the arena and entered the altar from the side of the steps. Chapter 12:31. The sparring field quieted down. Everyone's eyes fell on the steps and the calm toddler who was slowly walking onto the altar. They were looking forward to his performance. The 6-year-old toddler looked calm under everyone's gaze. As expected of this elder's son. On the high platform, the expressionless elder He Lang was excited and proud when he saw this scene. If it weren't for the fact that he had to keep this a secret, he would have told the truth immediately. This kid is not ordinary. On the side, Wang Xianling, the head of the main branch, and Wang Xianyuan, the head of the second branch, looked at each other and were secretly shocked. More than that, they felt uncomfortable. It was one thing for them to be suppressed by Wang Xuani earlier. Now, their son was not as good as him. How could they not be annoyed? Wang Xian walked up to the altar, sat cross-legged, and closed his eyes slightly. Seeing that he had sat down, an elder who presided over the ceremony came forward. He held a silver scepter in his hand. On the scepter, there was a pigeon egg-sized gem that emitted a faint silver starlight. He raised the scepter and pointed at the altar. An invisible starlight shot into the altar. Buzz! It was as if something crucial had been activated on the altar. Silver runes floated into his body one after another. Warmth. It was as if all the pores on his body were soaked in a hot spring. His whole body was bathed in the warm sunlight. It was indescribably comfortable. The warm aura penetrated deep into his body. Qin Feng could clearly feel that the soul power of the perfect human rank in his body began to fluctuate. Then, under the guidance of the silver-white runes, an unknown power was guided out of his body. He couldn't help but stretch out his palm. It was as if something was born on his palm. What kind of martial soul would it be? Was it a purple flame lion? Or some other kind of martial soul? If it was a purple flame lion, how many wings would it have? In the sparring field, everyone seemed to hold their breath and looked forward to it. It should be a good martial soul. It should be at least a middle-grade or upper-grade martial soul. The elders who presided over the awakening ceremony were the closest to the altar. Their eyes lit up slightly. They could clearly feel the waves of pressure coming from the depths of the altar. The level of pressure exceeded that of a upper-grade martial soul in the blink of an eye. It seems like our Wang clan is going to have a genius with a transcendent grade martial spirit. The elders looked at each other with excitement written all over their faces. To them, the greatest joy was to unearth more geniuses for their families. Geniuses were the future of a family. The appearance of a genius with a high-grade martial spirit was enough for a small clan to prosper for 100 years. If a genius with a transcendent martial spirit were to appear, the Wang clan would not have to worry about the succession for a few hundred years. Soon, their expressions darkened. In the center of the altar, the intense starlight gradually dissipated. Wang Xian raised his hand, and a wisp of light blue brilliance appeared. A light blue vine sapling appeared on his palm. Qin Feng was taken aback. It was a plant-type martial soul. However, the quality was indeed very high, and the power it exuded far exceeded that of the others who were testing it. It's the water spirit vine. A plant-type martial soul. How could one of our direct descendants awaken such an unorthodox martial soul? The group of elders discussed animatedly, each with different looks in their eyes. The water spirit vine? 13th Master, I remember that Madame Hua's martial soul was also the water spirit vine. It seems that the 11th young master, Wang Xian, should interact more with you. Perhaps it would be convenient for you to ask for guidance more often. Wang Xianling from the eldest branch mocked. Wang Kuang was shocked, but he soon recovered. Wang Xianling was just using this opportunity to squeeze the 5th branch. He said indifferently with an expressionless face. All right, as long as the 11th young master is willing, the door of my family will always be open for him. Elder Wang Kuang is very generous. However, not everyone is qualified to be the teacher of such a genius with a transcendent martial spirit. Next to him, an elder in a black robe chuckled and said. He glanced at Wang Kuang with a cold smile on his face. The second elder of the Wang clan, Wang Yingwu. One of the few elders in the Wang clan who could compete with Wang Kuang. Alright, all of you quiet down. As elders, don't you have any scruples about your image if you lose your composure in front of so many juniors? The first elder at the side said. Everyone looked over. It was a white-robed elder with white hair and a ruddy complexion. His face was ruddy and there was a trace of vicissitude in his eyes. The first elder, Wang Ying, was the strongest person in the Wang clan other than the old master. Since the old master announced that he would go into seclusion a few years ago, he had been the one in charge of the Wang clan. Wang Xian from the 5th branch, transcendent martial spirit, next. Qing Lang's announcement caused an unusual uproar in the sparring field. A transcendent martial spirit was too rare. Many people looked at the young man walking down from the altar with a strange look in their eyes. They were envious and jealous. It's just a water spirit vine. Even if it's a transcendent martial spirit, it's common knowledge that a plant martial spirit will automatically drop a grade when compared to other types of martial spirit. At most, it can only be regarded as an upper-grade martial spirit. There's nothing special about it. My big brother and the rest will definitely surpass you. Wang Xian glanced at him. Wang Menglin, the generous eldest son of the concubine, was so jealous that his eyes were red. Wang Xian was too lazy to care about this jealous guy. For the current Wang Xian, with the awakening of his martial spirit, the following cultivation path would be smooth. As long as he hunted a spirit beast and obtained a spirit ring, he would be able to officially break through to the yellow rank. The strong people in the Xing He continent started from the human rank, followed by the yellow rank, black rank, earth rank, and heaven rank. Every rank had 9 levels. To break through, one had to hunt a spirit beast and obtain a spirit ring at the 9th level. Generally speaking, a human rank martial artist could only bear a spirit ring of less than 100 years. This was the first spirit ring. Of course, the stronger the soul ring, the stronger the ability obtained after being strengthened would be far stronger than ordinary expert. Wang Xian had been cultivating since he was young. In addition, he created the nameless soul scripture that was most suitable for his current body. His physique was abnormally strong. Generally, a human rank martial artist's first spirit ring would be less than 100 years. He estimated that his limit should be far beyond this limit. It could even be hundreds or even thousands of years. But before that, there was still a problem. That was the direction of the martial spirit's development. Hunting a spirit beast was different. The spirit ring obtained would affect the martial spirit's ability. Wang Xian thought about the water spirit vine. He didn't have many choices at the moment. It could be the spirit transforming vine, the spirit devouring vine, or simply the frost vine. While thinking, he unknowingly passed through many attics and entered Feng Yi's boudoir. Chapter 1232. Young Master, Madam has been waiting for you in the attic for a long time. At the door, a beautiful girl in green seemed to be waiting for Wang Xian's arrival. Wang Xian raised his head and glanced at the maid in green. Ning Xiang. She was the only one left among the few maids that Feng Yi brought from the Feng family. The others had all perished in the battle 6 years ago. Ning Xiang looked at the young master in white with concern. Young master, you're back so early? Didn't you chat with young Master Yi and young Master Yuan? Wang Xian shook his head. He wasn't a real child. What was there to be angry with a group of brats? To him, it was to speed up his cultivation and have the power to protect himself. He was very clear that there were many people secretly watching them. In addition, since he used Wang Xian's identity, he had to bear the karma brought by this identity. Of course, before that, he had to figure out the general trend of this world. As long as he reversed the general trend, he could speed up his growth. However, the most important thing now is the problem with Feng Yi. Wang Xian stepped into the attic. Just now, when he saw Feng Yi and Ning Xiang leaving halfway, he felt that Feng Yi's old illness might be acting up again. In the spacious attic, Wang Xian felt a chill coming from the center when he stepped in. Feng Yi's boudoir showed a pink style, and a light muslin blocked everything inside. Pushing aside a few layers of curtains, Wang Xian saw a hazy figure inside. Sizzle! Suddenly, a thick heat wave rushed out along with a cold air from the muslin curtain. The blazing heat wave swept out, and the temperature in the entire room seemed to have increased by more than 10 degrees. It's acting up again? Wang Xian frowned. Behind him, Ning Xiang walked in and nodded slightly. 6 years ago, when Madame was in labor, a group of people used a strange and vicious power to injure Madame. Since then, Madame's injury has never recovered. These years, it has also triggered the Phoenix's internal fire, which has mutated into an extremely vicious internal fire. It has mixed into Madame's Phoenix martial spirit. If it wasn't for the cold air of the manifold mysterious ice essence suppressing it and young Master's help to vent this vicious fire, Madame is afraid. Ning Xiang's eyes flashed with worry. Wang Xian waved his hand. Don't worry about it, you can leave first. They are guarding outside. Yes. Ning Xiang nodded. After Ning Xiang left, Wang Xian looked at the last thin curtain in front of him. He pushed it aside and stepped inside. A wave of scalding hot air rushed over. This strange heat seemed to have a terrifying power that could erode one's bones. A layer of light blue fluorescence appeared on his body. Soul energy. This was a mysterious power that he cultivated, something that was unique to soul martial artists. Abundant soul power surged in his body like a great river, almost bursting out of his body, almost reaching the limit of the full circle of the human rank. Wang Xian was still unable to release his spirit power, which was a unique ability of yellow-rank spirit martial artists. Only after forming his first soul ring and strengthening his other soul rings could he achieve this. The surging heat wave was repelled by the faint soul power around his body. Wang Xian raised his eyes, and a beautiful woman who was practically naked appeared in front of him. She sat on top of an ice bed that was carved out of ice. The cold air was hazy, and the vigorous mist from back then outlined her astonishing curves. Even if Wang Xian had the state of mind of his main body, he couldn't help but feel a surge of emotions. But immediately, his expression changed. On the bed carved from ice, the stunningly beautiful woman suddenly let out a painful groan. A blazing heat was emitted from her delicate body. Her white jade-like skin was flushed red like braised prawns. Her delicate body was straight, and her delicate and elegant eyebrows were dripping with sweat. Even in the cold, she was sweating like syrup. It was obvious that she was suffering from great torture. She didn't seem to notice that her hair bun had broken at some point, and her black hair fell down like a waterfall. Her eyebrows were tightly knitted, and her teeth were biting into her cherry lips, bleeding. It was enough to see the pain and torture she was suffering. Wang Xian frowned and thought in his heart. 6 years ago, that person suddenly killed his way into the Wang mansion and killed Wang Xuanyi. After that, he clearly had the chance to kill Feng Yi, but he didn't. Instead, he used an evil method to transform Feng Yi's phoenix fire into a kind of internal phoenix fire. This is destroying Feng Yi bit by bit. The phoenix divine fire was extremely overbearing, and it could be said to be the Feng family's direct inheritance. This kind of divine fire was known to burn all the heavens. How terrifying would it be if such a divine fire was transformed into an internal fire? No matter how chaste a woman was, after several years of calcination, once it broke out, it would be light for her to become a man-crazy woman. The person who did this obviously hated Feng Yi to the core, which was why he was so vicious. At the same time, Wang Xian was also secretly vigilant. Others didn't know about Feng Yi's cultivation, but he knew that she was definitely an Earth Realm powerhouse. Most of the Earth Realm powerhouses were famous overlord. If there was an Earth Realm powerhouse among the 3 major families of Giant Spiritual City, it was enough to easily crush the other 2 families and unify Giant Spiritual City. Wang Xuanyi was a disciple of the Thousand Stars sect, and he was one of the best among the inner disciples of the sect. He was not an ordinary person. To be able to easily kill Wang Xuanyi and plot against Feng Yi, he was definitely an Earth Realm powerhouse. This aroused Wang Xian's vigilance. That person killed Wang Xuanyi and plotted against Feng Yi. He was afraid that he wouldn't easily let him, the only son of Wang Xuanyi. However, the first thing to do now was to help Feng Yi suppress the mutated phoenix internal fire. In Wang Xian's eyes, if she could achieve internal and external unity, perhaps Feng Yi could benefit from this disaster and break through the heaven realm in one fell swoop, becoming an overlord. However, this was basically impossible in a short period of time, unless there was a peerless powerhouse suppressing the mutated phoenix true fire for Feng Yi. Wang Xian's original body, Qin Feng, could do it, but he had not grown up yet, and the power of his original body could not be transmitted over. The only way now was to use other methods to vent the phoenix true fire. Although it could treat the symptoms and not the root cause, it could be very effective in helping Feng Yi vent the mutated divine fire. It could also delay the time of the eruption of the poisonous fire in the body. At least her brain would not be burned and she would become a love-struck fool. There were many ways to help Feng Yi vent the poisonous fire. The first choice was of course yin and yang mutual cultivation. Through the power of yin and yang, the poisonous fire in the body would be melted through the power of yin and yang taiji. But this method, not to mention whether Feng Yi would agree or not, Wang Xian would never agree. The other way was, while Wang Xian was thinking, his eyes had already seen Feng Yi unconsciously being burned by the poisonous fire. She had already lost part of her reason, and her whole body was torn apart. Wang Xian, who was dazed by the scene, had a dazed expression. Chapter 1233. In the quiet boudoir, Qin Feng sat cross-legged on the floor. His face was like fire and his body seemed to be burning with a flame. If one looked carefully, one could smell a milky white fragrance from the corner of his mouth. Beside him, Feng Yi had already put on her clothes. Her fine black hair draped over her shoulders like a waterfall. Her red phoenix eyes were bright and beautiful. Dressed in white, her temperament was extremely sacred and pure. However, There was a trace of residual charm in the corner of her eyes that added 10,000 types of charm to her. She looked at Wang Xian worriedly, but when she thought of the process of detoxification, she suddenly became flushed. This method was proposed by Wang Xian last year. She didn't agree at first, but she couldn't help but ask Wang Xian for help. However, it was proven that this could indeed stop the phoenix poison fire in her body. The sore and swollen feeling in his chest had disappeared along with the water being sucked away. Sizzle! At this moment, the high temperature emitted by Wang Xian, who was sitting cross-legged on the floor, gradually decreased. The redness on his face gradually dissipated. He opened his eyes and a threatening aura was emitted. Feng Yi sensed it slightly and a trace of surprise flashed through her watery eyes. This aura was not inferior to some yellow stage expert. She carefully sized up Wang Xian, but the aura he emitted was still only at the peak of the mortal stage. She was not disappointed. A 6-year-old at the peak of the mortal stage, this talent was not low in any force. On the ground, Wang Xian opened his eyes and then he heard Feng Yi's pleasant and slightly concerned voice. "Xian, are you okay?" Wang Xian opened his eyes and met the concerned eyes of the beautiful young woman. He shook his head and asked, "No, I'm born with a pure and flawless water physique. I can purify this kind of fire poison. I just tried to use the phoenix poison to refine my body. I didn't expect it to strengthen my body by a lot." Wang Xian stretched out a hand and casually slashed. Like a divine knife that could split the sky, his palm slashed the chair beside him and cut it in half like tofu. "That thing can be used as a body-refining elixir?" The beautiful young woman's voice trembled slightly and her beautiful face was burning. Her delicate body was a little weak. Wang Xian also realized that something was wrong and immediately stopped talking. The entire boudoir seemed to have fallen into an indescribable atmosphere. After a long while, Wang Xian coughed and said, "Are you feeling better, Xian?" The beautiful young woman shot a glance at the white-clothed young master. Her limpid eyes carried a hint of coquettishness. It was as if she was blaming Wang Xian for touching her sore spot. But soon after, her expression turned serious. "You have to prepare well. After the awakening ceremony, your martial soul has been exposed. I'm afraid those people won't let you off easily. Whether it's the other 2 big clans or your father's enemies, they won't allow another expert with a transcendent martial soul to appear in the Wang clan." As she spoke, a trace of worry appeared in the beautiful young woman's eyes. She wasn't afraid that those people would deal with her. Although the fire poison in her body often flared up, it was precisely because of the intensity of the fire poison that her cultivation progressed extremely quickly these past few years. His Earth rank soul power was already close to the peak of the Earth rank, and he wasn't far from the Heaven rank. Moreover, she had a strong background. Even if she were to elope, she would not be able to escape. Did she think that those people would not dare to do anything to her? But Wang Xian was different. Before his martial soul had awakened, those people might not have been willing to take the risk. However, it was different now. A transcendent martial soul, this talent was enough to make those forces fearful. Wang Xian's expression was calm. "Don't worry, I will protect myself well. However, during this period of time, I have to go to the giant spirit mountain range to look for soul beasts and obtain my first soul ring. I need you to help me fight for 2 months." He looked at the beautiful woman with pleading eyes. This was something that Wang Xian had thought about carefully. This world was a little special. If he didn't obtain his first soul ring, no matter what, it seemed that he wouldn't be able to break through the bottleneck of his body. The only way now was to go to the wild to look for soul beasts. Of course, the Wang family also reared many types of soul beasts in the ranch outside the city. However, in Wang Xian's eyes, most of them were trash. Killing those soul beasts to obtain soul rings would only waste his talent. "You're saying that you want to go to the giant spirit mountain range alone?" Feng Yi looked at the white-clothed young man in surprise. Her watery eyes flickered with extraordinary splendor. After a moment, she nodded. Indeed, your soul power has reached the peak of the human rank. If you want to break through the yellow rank and open your dantian, you can only condense your first soul ring. The giant spirit mountain range is the largest place to produce soul beasts within 1,000 miles of the giant spirit city. Only there can you obtain the best soul rings. Advance to the yellow rank. Moreover, you just awakened during the martial spirit ceremony. It's good to avoid the storm. Feng Yi paused when she said this. Her beautiful eyes gently glanced at the dazed young man in white. However, I can't let you go to the giant spirit mountain range alone. I have to accompany you. This, Wang Xian actually wanted to say that he didn't need anyone to accompany him. However, looking at the beautiful young woman's doting eyes, he immediately swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. All right. That night, in the dark night, in the second half of the night, a faint red light flew out from Feng Yi's pavilion. Its speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it was dozens of miles away. After a moment, it disappeared into the clouds high up in the sky. Isn't it not good for us to leave the Wang family like this? Being grabbed by Feng Yi with one hand, hugging the beautiful young woman's shockingly flexible waist, and a fragrant body fragrance like orchids and musk entered his nose. The white-clothed young man muttered, "The Wang family is just a bunch of good-for-nothings. Don't worry about them. Moreover, we can go and come back quickly." That voice was extremely pleasant to the ear, soft and gentle to the bone. However, it carried a cold disdain. Hearing this, Wang Xian immediately stopped talking. Feng Yi obviously looked down on this Wang family. At this moment, Feng Yi was wearing a white palace dress. Her extremely hot figure was highlighted under the white palace dress. Coupled with her angel-like beautiful jade face, she was like a holy and flawless beautiful saintess. He saw two fiery red, flame-like wings growing out from the white-clothed beautiful woman's shoulders. Phoenix wings. Wang Xian knew that it was the power of the phoenix martial spirit. When a spirit martial artist reached the earth rank, their strength was extremely tyrannical. Not only could they fuse with the martial spirit into armor, they could also display some more miraculous effects. It could be said that the gap between the various realms of spirit martial artists was very large. In Wang Xian's opinion, the main thing was still the miraculous effects of the spirit ring. Woo-woo! A terrifying wolf's howl below his feet interrupted Qin Feng's thoughts. He looked down and saw a barren plain under the clouds. On the plain, tigers and wolves roamed about. Those were large, jet-black wolves with dark green eyes. Nether great wolves? Wang Xian narrowed his eyes. These pitch-black giant wolves were a type of wolf-shaped soul beast. Most of them had average strength, but there might be a few nether wolf kings that had reached 100 years of age. Killing this type of soul beast would generally strengthen one's eyesight, claws, teeth, and smell. Many adventurers favored these wolf-shaped soul beasts. However, the skills of these wolf-shaped soul beasts after being strengthened by the spirit ring were useless to Wang Xian. Chapter 1234. Why? Have you taken a fancy to the Nether Wolf King? Glancing at Wang Xian's expression, Feng Yi followed Wang Xian's gaze and smiled. There are a few 300-year Nether Wolf Kings on the ground. The quality of their soul rings is not bad. They can strengthen your 5 senses and even enhance your 6th sense. Wang Xian shook his head. The enhancement of the 5 senses was extremely beneficial to martial artists, but it was useless to him. He was born with a strong 6th sense. What he needed now was a water-type soul ring that could rapidly increase his combat strength. Seeing that Wang Xian was not interested, Feng Yi did not persuade him anymore. Although the Nether Wolf King was not bad, it was not a good match. In the distance, the towering mountain range of the giant spirit mountain range was already in their vision. Creak creak. Just at this moment, a strange and concentrated sound of wings flapping could be heard. "What's that sound?" Wang Xian's expression changed as he looked ahead. A group of black shadows suddenly appeared under the moonlight and rushed towards the two of them. As they got closer, his expression changed as he saw the true appearance of the group of black shadows. They were pitch-black bats the size of pots and pans. Their silver-white eyes were like fireflies in the darkness, and their fangs were reeking of blood. This was a type of flying soul beast that lived in groups, moonlight bats. If an ordinary yellow rank expert encountered a group of moonlight bats, they would most likely die. Wang Xian's eyes were sharp. In front of this group of moonlight bats, he saw an extremely different blood-red bat. That was a blood moon bat king. Normally, only a bat king above 500 years old would have the chance to mutate into a blood moon bat king. The blood energy fluctuation on its body was extremely terrifying. It was enough to threaten some yellow rank level 7 soul martial artists. Our luck is not bad. We haven't even entered the giant spirit mountain range, and we've already encountered such a high-quality creature. Xian, it's more suitable to be your water spirit vine's first soul ring. What do you think? The beautiful white-clothed young woman looked at the white-clothed child under her ribs. Her watery eyes carried a hint of joy. Her body emitted a black rank aura. She did not chase away the moonlight bats, but only maintained her deterrence. Feeling the black rank aura fluctuation, the group of moonlight bats fell into chaos, but then they started circling around. The moonlight bats were ferocious and loved to suck blood. The more powerful the living being, the more beneficial it would be to them. Wang Xian pondered. He had seen this type of soul beast in one of the Wang family's soul beast diagrams. All in all, the soul rings condensed from killing such soul beasts were not bad. In particular, the Blood Moon Bat King's soul ring had a certain proportion of the bloodthirsty martial soul and the ultrasonic sensing ability. This was one of the more practical soul ring abilities. Bloodthirst, after being activated, would awaken his martial spirit, giving him the ability to devour and refine his opponent's blood essence to replenish his soul power. And the ultrasonic sensing ability was an extremely rare auxiliary ability. Ultrasonic waves included echolocation, ultrasonic vibration, and other abilities. However, Wang Xian's martial soul was the water spirit vine of the plant element. Thus, it was unlikely that he would be able to trigger the bloodthirst effect and evolve the water spirit vine into a bloodthirsty vine. However, after thinking for a moment, Qin Feng shook his head. What a pity! Seeing Wang Xian shake his head, Feng Yi did not force it either, but she still felt some pity in her heart. The Blood Moon Bat King was a rare soul beast. It was a rare soul beast, and its strengthening abilities had a lot of potential, especially its ultrasonic sensing ability. It was very useful in the early stages of a soul martial artist. Foresight was better than foresight. Feng Yi did not know that Wang Xian's battle talent was already close to the Tao. Her sensing ability was much stronger than the Blood Moon Bat King's ultrasonic sensing ability. Her expression turned serious as she released a portion of her Earth rank aura. Squeak, squeak. Feeling the terrifying aura, a group of greedy bats that were circling around panicked. They flapped their wings as though they were frightened and flew away. After scaring away a group of moonlight bats, the two of them were already above the giant spiritual mountain range. Looking at the undulating mountain range in the distance, they could not see the end of it. Wang Xian's eyes lit up. Although the giant spiritual mountain range was not one of the top 10 soul beast holy grounds in the Star River continent, it was still a famous hunting ground for mid-grade soul beasts in the West Chu Empire. In this hunting ground there were many mid-grade and low-grade soul beasts, and it was famous for its variety of soul beasts. It could be considered a holy ground in the giant spiritual county. Every year, many soul martial artists would head to the giant spiritual mountain range to hunt for soul rings. From high up in the sky, Wang Xian could smell the smoke in the sea of clouds. Clearly, even though it was a dangerous night in the giant spiritual mountain range, there were still people camping in the mountains. Xian, do you want to rest? Looking at the white-clothed young master beside her, Feng Yi felt a little heartache. She smoothed the fluffy hair on his forehead for him. No need. Wang Xian shook his head. The nameless soul scripture that he cultivated was extremely profound and mysterious. Its grade was far higher than ordinary cultivation techniques. He was full of energy, and could even starve for 3 days and 3 nights without a problem. Now that Wang Xuani's enemies knew about his talent, he did not know what kind of experts they would send to deal with him. He had to race against time to become stronger. The two of them found a mountain bay to land. Following Wang Xian's request, they had to find a place near a water source where water-type soul beasts gathered. In the cool night wind, the fragrance of flowers blew over from time to time. Occasionally, there were the roars of soul beasts. Under the bend of the mountain, a stream gurgled. It was especially cool in the night wind. Wang Xian's figure moved and jumped onto the reef. His eyes were filled with excitement. He could sense a few types of soul beasts by the stream. One type was the big pincer crab. It was a type of large crab with extremely powerful pincers. Each of them was the size of a stone bowl and had a rock-green shell. They blew bubbles in the water, and 1 or 2 of them could be seen from time to time. This was a type of low-grade water-type soul beast. Killing this type of soul beast would strengthen the strength of one's hands. Beside the stream, there was also a type of dark green turtle. Taking advantage of the night, they all ran to the shore. This type of big turtle was the rockcliffe turtle. The soul ring obtained from killing this rockcliffe turtle could strengthen a portion of the soul beast's defense. The lucky ones could obtain an ability called the spirit turtle's mind realm. However, these were all low-grade soul beasts and did not have much value. Usually, unless they were extremely old, their only value was as a delicacy on the table. In the distance, Feng Yi looked at the white-clothed young master on the rock with a doting gaze. Ever since the white-clothed young master was born, she had always been worried about the phoenix poison fire in her body. She almost did not care about Wang Xian. This made her feel guilty from the bottom of her heart. If possible, she wanted to make it up to the white-clothed young master. Roar! An incomparably fierce tiger roar came from afar. The two people's expressions changed. In the depths of the darkness, a fishy wind swept over. Suddenly, a large, black-mottled, white-striped bug rushed out from the forest in the distance. In the blink of an eye, it arrived on a rock on the other side of the stream and stared at the two people like a tiger eyeing its prey. Black-wind tiger? Wang Xian focused his eyes and was happy instead of shocked. It was common knowledge that most tiger-type soul beasts had a special effect on male soul warriors. The younger one obtained a tiger-type soul ring, the greater the benefits after strengthening it. A tiger's back and a bear's waist was usually used to describe a man's imposing manner. A tiger-type soul ring was usually able to strengthen a man's temperament and strength. Of course, there was an unconfirmed rumor that tiger-type soul rings could strengthen a man's ability in a certain aspect. This point had always been talked about enthusiastically by many male soul warriors. Many people favored tiger-type soul rings because of this. Thick, long, and big cough cough. Chapter 1235. Thick, long, and large enticement. Wang Xian looked at the striped tiger on the other side of the stream. The black-wind tiger was one of the more common wind-type tiger-type spirit beasts in the giant spirit mountain range. Apart from the above benefits, if one was lucky, one could also obtain the wind element enhancement. It would make one more agile, nimble, and more sensitive to the flow of the wind. This black-wind tiger is tall and should be close to 300 years old. Its strength is not inferior to an ordinary yellow-rank expert. Do you need me to make a move? Feng Yi smiled as she looked at Wang Xian not far away. No need, it's just a black-wind tiger. Wang Xian smiled faintly as his gaze landed on the black-wind tiger's body. It was as if he was analyzing the black-wind tiger's bones, skin, and flesh. Roar. With a loud roar, the black-wind tiger seemed to have been provoked and retreated a few steps. In the next moment, it rushed towards the river bank and stared fiercely at the little person on the rock on the other side of the river. The moment the black-wind tiger pounced, Wang Xian's figure moved. In Feng Yi's eyes, Wang Xian shot out from his original position like a wisp of smoke. Feng Yi was already prepared to make a move at any time. Although she wanted to train Wang Xian, when it came down to it, she couldn't bear to let Wang Xian take the risk. But soon, her expression relaxed. Rumble! The two figures of a man and a tiger crossed each other in a flash. However, in an instant, life and death were determined. Bang! A heavy object fell into the stream and water splashed everywhere. The other figure was like a spinning leaf in midair, and actually turned back in midair. The wind swept past, and in the next moment, it landed on the rock. What a neat move! Feng Yi's beautiful eyes fell on the white-clothed young master. Her beautiful eyes were full of splendor. Even with her experience, she couldn't find any fault with Wang Xian's actions. Leaping up, seizing a flaw in the black-wind tiger's jump, smashing its heart and suddenly returning. It could be said to be done in one go. At this age, this kind of fighting spirit, even in the history of the Feng family, I'm afraid it's rare. The white-clothed beautiful young woman's heart was filled with joy. If Wang Xian's almost monstrous mind was added, his future achievements would be limitless. The white-clothed woman was as elegant as a fairy, but her heart was surging. In the stream, following the death of the black-wind tiger, a layer of pale yellow light overflowed from the black-wind tiger's corpse and gradually turned into a pale black halo. It was the soul ring of the black-wind tiger after it died. Once a perfect human-class powerhouse absorbed this soul ring, they would be able to advance to the yellow class. Within half an hour, if no one absorbed it, the soul ring would turn back into soul power, dissipate and return to the earth. Qin Feng didn't pay any attention to the black-wind tiger's soul ring. His goal was very clear, a water-type soul ring. Killing the black-wind tiger was only because the black-wind tiger didn't know what was good for it, not because he lacked confidence. Wang Xian followed the stream towards the depths of the giant spiritual mountain range. From the Wang family's library pavilion's records regarding the giant spirit mountain range, there was a 1,000-kilometer underground valley deep within the mountain range. That valley was the hub of the giant spirit mountain range's water system, and many types of water-type soul beasts lived there. In the middle, the sky gradually brightened. The two of them chose a place to rest for a while. Then, he set off again. There were many soul beasts in the giant spirit mountain range. The variety was indeed flourishing. Walking along the upstream of the stream, more and more water-type soul beasts appeared in front of the two of them. Water cannon turtles that could spit out water pillars to attack, green tail prawns with green tails, poison thorn algae with poisonous thorns, rainbow flying fish with colorful scales that could jump out of the water for a short period of time, ice spirit blue shellfish that could freeze a part of the water surface's blue shells. All kinds of water-type soul beasts. Even Wang Xian felt that it was an eye-opener. Along the way, they also encountered some ignorant soul beasts, but most of them were taken care of by Wang Xian. Their speed was very fast, and in the morning, the two of them were close to the underground valley in the records. On the hillside, Wang Xian looked over. It was a valley in the middle of the mountains. White mist filled the air, making it impossible to see clearly. Only the fluctuations of the water nearby could allow one to see through a corner of the lake. The dense water-type soul power emitted was very captivating. It was a myriad of scenes. I didn't expect that there would be such a beautiful place in the giant spirit mountain range. Feng Yi's watery eyes looked up and down at the body of water. Early in the morning, the sun shone down from the sky. There was a layer of white mist above the clouds, as if it was one with the surrounding mountains, covering the sky and the sun. Open! A circle of dense flames shot out from Feng Yi's body, and the blazing high temperature flew into the center of the white mist. Gradually, the dense white mist was dispersed. Wang Xian's gaze focused, and a small island in the center of the lake appeared in front of him. Rather than calling the small island an island, it was better to call it a rock in the center of the lake. On the rock there was a strange fruit tree. It was icy blue like water, and a faint water-type soul power was emitted. Its branches were exquisite and curved like a coiling dragon. There were only a few light blue leaves, and one of the branches had an icy blue fruit that emitted an alluring soul power light. A strange fragrance spread out along with the white mist. Water soul fruit? By the side, Feng Yi had already cried out in surprise. There's actually a spirit tree growing here, and it even bears a fruit. Wang Xian's expression did not change. The water soul fruit was a type of water-type mutant fruit. This kind of fruit tree was born from nature and absorbed the free water-type soul power of heaven and earth to give birth to a spirit fruit. This spirit fruit was abnormally rare. Regardless of whether it was a human or beast that swallowed it, it could increase their soul power and temper their martial soul. It was a rare treasure. Xian seems like your luck is not bad. Feng Yi's watery eyes shone with a smile. Such a natural treasure was truly a top-notch spirit item for forging one's foundation. In her opinion, it was suitable for Wang Xian to refine. Her body moved slightly, but she suddenly raised her brows. Wang Xian grabbed her hand and shook his head. Xian what are you doing? The beautiful young woman in white looked at the white-clothed young master with a pair of beautiful eyes that could speak. Wang Xian's expression was indifferent as he smiled mysteriously. The beautiful young woman in white was puzzled, but she understood in the next moment. She smelled a rich fragrance of a spirit fruit. Roar! In the blink of an eye, she could hear the excited roars of several soul beasts. A few beast roars came from all directions, and several tyrannical auras of soul beasts approached this small lake rapidly. The beautiful young woman in white looked at Wang Xian, who was beside her with a smile on his face, and thought to herself, "This little fellow is really smart. He actually thought of using this water soul fruit to catch those soul beasts. However, with the abundant soul power of the water soul fruit, he might really be able to catch a few powerful fellows." Chapter 1236. Giant Spirit City was dominated by the three major families. Other than the Wang family, there were also the Yi and Dongfang families. In fact, 6 years ago, the Wang family had already conquered the entire city. If not for Wang Xuani's sudden death in battle, there would only be one family left in Giant Spirit City. Yi family in a loft. Yiwen's face was gloomy. "Patriarch, we've just received news that Feng Yi and Wang Xuani have disappeared." Beside him was another powerful figure in the Yi family, Yi Lingfeng, the strongest in the family. He glanced at Yi-Wen and spoke. "That lord wants us to monitor Feng Yi's every move. Feng Yi has been living in seclusion all these years. Her sudden disappearance probably has something to do with that brat. I heard that the little brat awakened a transcendent grade martial spirit during this martial spirit awakening ceremony. Feng Yi suddenly disappeared with the little brat. I'm afraid it's to protect the little brat." Yiwen pondered for a moment before speaking in a deep voice. "Inform that lord immediately." Yi Lingfeng nodded. "Big brother, should we send experts? Experts? Do you think we're Feng Yi's match?" Yiwen glanced at Yi Lingfeng. "But you're right. Some things need to be done. We can send some of our spies, but not the elites. Try your best to search the low-grade and mid-grade hunting grounds. Those are the key areas to investigate." Yi Lingfeng nodded. Swoosh! Swoosh! A strange bird that was completely snow-white flew without a trace, tearing through the heavens. It flapped its wings extremely quickly, like lightning. layers of clouds were torn apart, gradually revealing a continuous and majestic mountain range. Strangely, layers of luxurious jade palaces appeared above the mountain range surrounded by clouds. It was like a heavenly realm in the clouds. Every brick and tile of these palaces was extremely beautiful, as if it was the residence of a true god. There was a kind of majesty in the ethereal air. Powerful auras occasionally flowed out from some of the palaces. It was soul-stirring. Clearly, this was the mountain gate of a large sect. In the sea of clouds, smart young men and women wearing the robes of the sect could be seen from time to time. They were being led by groups of experts to cultivate by the mountain streams or streams. Young Master's cloud falcon is back. Beside the stream, a disciple carrying a sword on his back couldn't help but raise his head when he heard the sound of wings flapping. In the next moment, he looked surprised. Everyone knew that there were many kinds of soul beasts in the sect that could send messages, but the cloud falcon was a symbol of the young master's lineage. Furthermore, the cloud falcons in the sky were no ordinary cloud falcons. They probably had soul power of 1,000 years. It could be said that he could travel hundreds of thousands of miles in a day. Using a cloud falcon of this level to send a message was definitely not a simple matter. The 1,000-year cloud falcon flew across the sea of clouds and circled around a few more times before arriving at a tall and beautiful mountain peak in the depths of the sect. The spring chill was chilly, the mountain stream was hazy with white clouds, and the waterfall was sloping like a white dragon. However, on one side of the cliff, there was a brass wooden building suspended between the cliffs. Strong winds blew, but it stood firm. The everlasting pine tree beside the wooden building. On top of the wooden building, a delicate and pretty girl in white was sitting cross-legged. Her expression suddenly changed. She looked to be about 17 or 18 years old, and had a bit of baby fat. Her eyes moved and she stretched out a hand. White cloud light floated like a lonely shadow, and a stream of light flew into her hand. It was a strange white hawk with a small body and a sharp beak. Sizing up this cloud falcon, the white-clothed girl's expression gradually became serious. She knew that using a 1,000-year cloud falcon to send a message was definitely not ordinary. This message had to be directly reported to that young master. She skillfully removed the sealed bamboo tube from the cloud falcon's feet. Creak! The door of the wooden building opened, and the white-clothed girl hurriedly left the building, entering the depths of the mountain mist. After passing through several palaces, she arrived in front of a simple and unadorned palace. "Halt!" A faint voice sounded, and a beautiful girl in her 20s walked out from the side. She wore a long white dress, and her long hair draped over her shoulders. Her jade-like face was like autumn water, but there was a cold arrogance between her brows. The aura on her body was much stronger than that of the white-clothed girl. The white-clothed girl knew the rules, and immediately cupped the bamboo tube in her hands and retreated to the side. "There is an urgent message. You can leave." The white-clothed girl took the bamboo tube, turned around, and disappeared into the palace. She passed through several palace doors, and was about to knock on the innermost palace door. "Yun Shui, come in." A voice filled with endless coldness came from the door, as if it was in front of her. "Yes, young master." The palace door automatically opened from the inside. The palace door was unusually spacious. As the palace door opened, 2 rows of silver lotus flowers were lit up layer by layer, extending all the way to the depths of the palace, where a figure was sitting cross-legged in front of. It was a tall and handsome young man in white. He sat cross-legged with his eyes closed, and his eyebrows reached his temples. He opened his eyes, and it was as if 2 bolts of lightning shot out from the palace door. Seeing the white-clothed young man open his eyes, Yun Shui's shoulders trembled slightly. Obviously, she was extremely afraid. She bent her knees and respectfully offered the bamboo tube in her hands. The white-clothed young man waved his hand, and the bamboo tube silently appeared in his hand. He opened the bamboo tube, and a roll of animal skin appeared in his eyes. With just a glance, his eyes suddenly became fierce. Poochie! Silently, the animal skin in his 5 fingers turned into ashes. Bitch! The resentful voice seemed to come from the depths of hell, and the white-clothed young man's expression instantly distorted. The broken wound on his lower body was faintly painful. That nightmarish humiliation seemed to be right in front of him, and his eyes were red because of malevolence. Fei Xing Mengzhen, do it. Don't hurt Feng Yi, but that little bastard must die. The cold voice seemed to blow out from the endless depths of hell. Yun Xue's hands and feet were cold, and she sucked in a breath of cold air in her heart. Fei Xing and Mengzhen were the only Earth-grade experts under this young master, and they were not ordinary Earth-grade experts. They could be said to be this young master's left and right-hand men. Slightly nodding, Yun Xue respectfully retreated. After Yun Xue retreated, the white-clothed young man closed his eyes and took a few deep breaths. After a moment, he calmed down, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Feng Yi, you bitch, this young master won't let you die like this. Wait until this young master breaks through to heaven grade, and my broken limbs grow back. This young master will play you bit by bit to death. Daring to scheme against this young master will make you beg for death. His words were filled with resentment, but when he thought of Feng Yi's beautiful figure, the white-clothed young man's eyes flashed with lust. It won't be long, at most a few months, this young master will definitely break through to heaven grade. At that time I will play with you bitch, the #1 beauty of the West Chu Empire. When he thought of Feng Yi's perfect and fiery figure, his cold face twisted, like a perverted demon, unable to wait. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.